Nice. Okay, let's do it. Looks like I'm live. Casey, Nicole, can you hear me? Yeah, you can. Okay, nice. Yeah, so we got a special show today. Casey set up today. It's going to be all about the cold storage and privacy with Degan and Bitcoin security essentials. And Degan is an expert on. He's really a Bitcoin expert overall. He's just a huge Bitcoin expert. But overall, not just a Bitcoin expert, but also a security expert inside of how to use Bitcoin and secure your keys. And one of the problems that that I think myself and a lot of other people have been having are how do we make sure that like Bitcoin is safe, BSV Bitcoin, how is it safe and secure so that it's not going to be hacked from hackers and also just lost or confused. I mean, it's a really complicated process. And I think most people, they just put things on Coinbase and now that they banned Bitcoin off Coinbase, it gets even more confusing. So now what do? You have to have your own wallet and you have to have it all secured. And there's cold wallets now and paper wallets that Degan is now doing. So we got to learn all this. And I really got to, this is going to be recorded so that we can really make sure that people learn it and actually adapt it and start using it. So this is going to be huge. So Casey, why don't you chime in? Oh, we got Brett too. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I think this is a very important conversation we all need to have. Thank you so much, Degan, for joining us. I'm excited to hear more about what you've built.
Degan. Hey,
Hey,
buddy.
yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate the time to speak about this sort of thing.
Absolutely. And I just added Brett up too. And Brett, I had a show with Brett yesterday. We did a really great show. So I invited him up to come up as well because I know he speaks very highly of you. And you and I met once before in San Francisco. Was it in San Francisco or was it in London? I don't remember where, but I know I met you once before.
Yeah, it was London. It must have
London.
been London. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And so but yeah, Brett, maybe you could do an introduction of Degan since you know him best. How you doing, Brett? Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, Degan, one of the people, and I think this is indicative of the entire BSV space. There's someone that they take time out of their day to really break things down for lay people like myself. I've been involved in technology, but I'm not, an expert by any means in any of this stuff. And, we're within BSV, within Bitcoin itself, we have a very nuanced and perspective about it. So that requires understanding, why big blocks, why SPV. We can use them as sort of like banners and we can wave them, but, to really build this movement into what it needs to become, a liberating movement, we need to also understand the whys. And, I found Degan right away back from the days when he had created Baymail, which was before anything else. And it was a way to assign proof of work or payments to emails that you were receiving so that you could theoretically, I want to get in Joe Rogan's inbox, so, he gets flooded, but with a million people that want to get into his inbox. But, if I could assign proof of work at the time he was using Boost Pal with Daniel Krawitz, or some payments, maybe I send him $100, that's going to move my email to the top of his list. So from back in those days, probably 4 or 5 years ago, when he was creating that framework, he would just take time out of his day to answer my very, very basic questions. And ever since then, he's always just been so generous with his time. He's such a great educator, and he's someone that truly believes in the free market vision that Bitcoin brings with micropayments and data services to the whole world. So we're very, very thankful and lucky to have Degan here on the show with us today.
Nice.
Wow, thanks, man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Brett.
those kind words.
Yeah, definitely, Degan. I'm really excited to have you. And, Casey kind of called the show about what you're doing with paper wallets and cold storage. And so, really, I want to hear what you're up to. And I mean, I kind of like phrase like what people really need right now. I mean, as you probably know, well, actually, what are people, asking you that they really need education on right now?
Hey, yeah, that's a great question. I guess my focus just now is more on BRC 100 wallet interface. And I think the paper wallet application that you're referring to is really, for me, more of a chance to see how you could integrate paper wallets into that framework. So the idea being that there should be, so my focus at the moment is building bridges between all of the various different ways that you can interact with BSV to this BRC 100 interface. So most people know that as like the Metanet desktop application. So that's the open source implementation of a BRC 100 wallet. And building apps for that is what I'm sort of focused on just now, just demonstrating how you can use this technology. And I felt like paper wallets hadn't been talked about for years. So why not build an implementation that is compatible with the latest and greatest sort of Metanet wallet stack? So that was really my purpose. But it's certainly an interesting topic. And, securing keys has always been a difficult task. And for years at the BSVA, we had been talking about things like hardware wallets, working on some of the open source libraries for things like YubiKeys, seeing if we could get the HSMs that banks use to secure funds in the BSV ecosystem, that sort of thing. And so the implementation of this app, which you can find at secure.atx.systems, is all about using the SDK's Shamir secret sharing scheme key splitting functionality. So really, this had been in the SDK for probably a year now, but no one's really used it. So I thought probably needs an implementation. So why not build it out into an app so we can kind of demonstrate how you can use this tech.
So it sounds like you're all about the BRC 100 standards right now that Babbage has been working on, and this with this Metanet client.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that was born out of Babbage's early work on this stuff, but really is through conversations with me. Ty and I have been speaking for years about this stuff. Well, Ty's been trying to convince me of this stuff for years, and maybe a year ago now, or almost 2 years ago now, I sort of started to understand what he was on about, and realizing, oh, this is actually exactly aligned with my mission at the BSVA, which from the get-go was SPV, and really just getting people to build out the tools necessary so that we can, at the edge of the network, scale things out. Because all of the focus had been on the center of the network. How do you get more transaction throughput? And so they needed a guy to take care of, well, what do applications need to do differently if they're not relying on these central services? So that was my mission. And it aligned really nicely with what Atai was doing. And he was one of the only guys in the ecosystem that really, I feel like, really got SPV in terms of the application development side of things, and had some fantastic ideas, him and his team. So yeah, we've been working together since that point, and him and his team have been working with the BSVA to deliver this distributed application stack, which is going really well.
So now it sounds like the BSVA is now handling the Babbage stack. Is that right? Overseeing it?
Well, when you say Babbage stack,
Or
that is the BSV stack, essentially, is
BSVA
what we're talking about.
Okay.
Babbage is, of course, prolific in the ecosystem. They're the developers that we hire to get this stuff done. But yeah, the effort is completely aligned with what the BSVA are doing. Yeah, we're effectively paying to have it open sourced, and contributing ourselves in some capacities.
Nice. All right. So what can people do? I mean, ultimately, how do we get? I think a question I had for Brett yesterday was like, how the heck do we learn this stuff? Like, where do we begin?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge, right? So the more sort of obscurely secure things are, the more sort of complex the learning curve, perhaps. But yeah, I think part of my challenge has been trying to explain SPV and how that relates to security is even the app I built here is really for generating one key. So you generate and split one single key. And usually in most users' minds, that means there's a Bitcoin address associated with that key, and you can pay money into that, and later you can retrieve it using the private key, right? Address-based payments, in other words. So the difficulty in sort of migrating away from that concept is, although you get some benefits like avoiding key reuse is definitely something I'd advocate for. If you avoid key reuse, then you need to have some other abstraction that you use to sort of define payments between people. So in the case of the BRC-100 stuff, we do that through public keys, and we can derive lots of different addresses in some sense from just two public keys and some extra information. So like you and I could both sort of identify ourselves by a particular public key where we have the private key. And from there, we can generate a bunch of different keys for a bunch of different use cases just by kind of combining those keys with some private information between you and I. And then
That'd
we
be
can
super
make,
valuable. So if I could have
yeah,
a way to have a lot of addresses with just one key.
yeah, exactly. So we just call that a key derivation scheme. And so the one that we have baked into the BRC-100 spec allows you to sort of create an arbitrarily large number of keys just from a root key. So each of us have a root key, and we can kind of communicate with each other to figure out a bunch of keys that external parties would have absolutely zero chance of guessing. But both you and I know which keys are ours and which keys are yours, and so on.
That's something I want to learn. That out of all these addresses somehow that we could have. So how would I do that?
So that one's definitely difficult to keep sort of at layman levels. But if you don't mind dipping into the math, it's so it uses elliptic curve cryptography. Well, no, not really cryptography, but elliptic curve mathematics. There's this property of elliptic curves that allows you to sort of share public information with one another, and then both calculate the same shared secret. That's commonly referred to as elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman key exchange. So you can kind of Google that or ask an AI, and it will explain that to you at any level you want, I suppose. Once you have that shared secret, you can then use that in a sort of hash function, which allows you to add some extra information before hashing. And if you both have that private information and you can both calculate a shared secret, it's a super secure way to then generate a bunch of random numbers. And really, keys are just random numbers. So you can generate lots of random numbers. And if you want to then create a key that you both can calculate the public key, but only one of you can calculate the private key, then all you need to do is add one of these random numbers to either my private key or your private key. And the other side of that equation is something called point addition. And so we can both calculate the public key associated with a hash that we've just calculated through all that math. And we add that to your public key if we want to derive a key that only you could unlock. And we add it to my public key if we want to derive a key that only I can unlock. So that's how we sort of come to an agreement about which key we're going to make payments to or encrypt things to, and so on. So hopefully that's a reasonable enough explanation without going too deep. But I'm not trying to gloss over it or anything. That really is what happens under the hood.
And so if I were to now want to do that, what would I do? Because without
like as a user,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't I mean, it's just interesting as a user, I would say. You don't actually need to do anything specific yourself other than using the BRC 100 flavor wallets. So at the moment, there's just one, but in future, there could be any number. And all of this tech is vendor neutral, which means, yes, Babbage are running a production stack at the moment. And any other company that's interested can run the open source software and become another provider. So if you're using Metanet Desktop and you want to make a payment using the key derivation scheme I was describing, really you can use any of the apps on the app catalog of Metanet Desktop. All of those will be using that or similar key derivation schemes to secure these micropayments.
Okay, so the first thing is to download the Metanet Desktop.
Yeah.
Looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the one thing that I think people have found confusing about Metanet Desktop is that it doesn't actually make payments on its own. It's not like Handcash. It's not like Centbee. It's not like anything else you've seen, really. It's very specifically an architecture that separates out concerns between wallets, which derive keys and help you manage your identity, and applications, one application of which would be just making payments to other people. So it's intentionally splitting that functionality out. And this is not my idea. This is Ty's idea. Credit where credit's due. But I think it's a really good idea because what it allows is innovation in multiple fields and separately. So now we have an ecosystem where if you're really good at UX design and web applications, you don't have to worry about all that complex cryptography. You can just use the kind of standard, but you can innovate in terms of making the user experience of creating peer-to-peer payments between people smoother somehow. So if you're just great at designing cool looking web interfaces, then you can apply that and you can charge for the service of using your payments web app, and you can make money. And you can make micropayments, which means that you can make money where the lowest rung on the ladder is extremely low because the barrier to entry is basically zero, because everyone in this ecosystem can just click one button on your web app and they're immediately paying you for your service.
Looks like Babbage has joined us.
Hey guys, can you hear me? I don't know if I'm audible. I'm actually joining the Twitter space from my desktop computer.
Yeah. Okay, I
Okay,
can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, happy to answer any questions about that. Degan, I think you gave a great explanation of the way that the shared secret system works in an accessible way that the average person can understand. So that's really valuable, and I think that's the best that anybody can really do with trying to explain some of the really complex math involved to just average people who want to use the wallet. And there's a lot of new stuff coming out, of course, with the Metanet Desktop and some of these apps that use this. But really, yeah, separation of concerns will allow us to focus on getting each one of these little experiences right, so that at the end, when we try to have users go through the combined experience of using all of these things together to to get value from the BSC blockchain and the Metanet stack, right? That's kind of the goal, right? Is that the combined experience would be better because everybody can focus in on each little piece. And key derivation happens under the hood. But yeah, securing wallets with those keys is something that is extremely important, and we want to make sure that as many people who can understand that stuff have the opportunity, and just be transparent about how it works, and ask answer questions from anybody, so that people can feel like their funds are secure and that the wallet does what it needs to and protects privacy, and just of course all the code's open and everything, but not everybody can read all of the code. So we need some way to translate some of that into language that the average person can understand. And I think that's an important thing that you're calling forward to space, Gavin. So thanks for putting it on. Thanks for having us here today.
Yeah, thank you to Babbage. Ty, I appreciate it. It looks like Brett has come up as well with his hand up. So Brett, over to you.
Yeah, I just had a question for Degan and Ty. Either one of you could take this. But just to an analogy for that portion that you described where the functionality of the wallet, of the transaction signing, et cetera, is sort of separated. Is an analogy for that sort of like, a personal computer when those became popular? One of the things, the advantages of a personal computer is that it's able to perform these logic functions but we don't need to instruct our computer to how to perform all these logic functions, even though we could, but we instead, use an operating system. And then, the person that's coming along, they just need to develop an app. They don't need to tell the computer, how to perform all these low-level functions. So it's a little bit like that, where the Metanet desktop, in a way, is sort of like the operating system for the Web3 universe. And then the developers who want to come in, they don't need to go down to the low level and the primitives, et cetera, and they can just build off of the stack that you've provided them.
I would say, yeah, that's accurate, because actually, just to give a little bit of history and context on where we started with this. When I was 5 years ago, I wrote a paper called Computing with Integrity, and that was the foundation for a lot of stuff that has eventually evolved into this stack and this ecosystem. And internally within the Babbage team, before everything was public and open source, and before we really released a lot of this stuff for everybody to check out, we had an internal name for the what we called the CWI kernel. So CWI being Computing with Integrity kernel, and we would just call it the kernel. And an operating system has a kernel, and it was like this core thing that all of the apps would call into, and it was the driver of the wallet system, the key storage and management system, the permissioning system, and the identity system. So that all of the apps could focus on application layer stuff, and that aligns very well. So it speaks to your insight, Brett, that you could think to draw that parallel, because that's the exact same parallel that we drew internally when we would call the CWI core, or the brains of the Metanet desktop application. We called it the kernel for that exact reason. So spot on. In the same way, I guess, that as well, maybe just like you don't have to fully understand how to architect the best engine block in order to drive a vehicle down the road, the same thing applies here, where how to architect the best key derivation scheme in order to make sure that users can be in control of their stuff. Now, that's very important. In the same way, it's very important that your car does not blow up when you're driving it. But we need to make sure that, just like with cars, right, we have good standards, good security practices, audits, all of that type of thing. And that's one of the key reasons as well why it's so important to open source a lot of these capabilities and subject them to as many eyeballs worth of scrutiny as we possibly can. And so app developers will call down into this this wallet system, which is probably going to be part of operating systems like Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. That would be the goal anyways into the future, and also on mobile with our phones, right? But this is the interface, right, between the app and the wallet, where the wallet in some way kind of acts like an operating system, and then people can learn the way to the programming interface, the application programming interface, useful to to create things on top. And that's what we then get into BRC 100, and that's exactly what that is. It defines that layer of interoperability, and it does all of that. but I don't want to get ahead of the conversation here with that stuff. But that's certainly a key part of how this works and how it kind of separates those concerns, so that every application doesn't need to focus on key security and making sure all of the math is correct. Just like every driver on the road doesn't need to focus on making sure their engine block is designed properly in order to get where they're going.
Yeah, that makes me feel really good that I got that analogy right. I'm going to try and push my luck and maybe make one more analogy. So then going back a little bit to how Degan described the key derivation and the ability to create this shared secret. And, one of the things that makes me think of is that in a way, then the UTXOs that are being generated sort of function a little bit like memory, because, if you just think of a squirrel, for example, when they have an abundance of acorns, they want to hide them so that they can find them in the winter, right? So they go around to the various different places in the park. Maybe they hide a couple here and they hide a couple there. In a way, this is sort of like, the operating system, when it wants to record some information that maybe it can recall later, it knows where on the disk space it's going to write that information. So, sort of like a squirrel, it goes and hides it behind the big pine tree in the park or something. And so it sounds a little bit like this shared interoperability system that you're developing and you're designing is almost using the UTXO model as like a shared memory system, where now these various different participants in that network, they can combine to store some information. So maybe we store information about my whatever it is, the application, maybe it's a gaming application, and I want to store some information about my current rank or my current score or something like that. We can combine to store that information in a location that on the disk, the UTXO set, that only myself and the gaming provider know where that is, so we both have access to it. Would you say that that's also an analogy that fits in terms of the UTXO set as sort of a shared memory bank?
I would say yes. I mean, certainly there's a lot to unpack with the UTXO set and the way that data is tracked and managed inside of applications. But at a high level, yes, 100% accurate. That's a very apt analogy for something like output baskets, where you can put data in a UTXO, and then you can have that in a basket. And a basket is basically just a specific location where data is stored, and it sort of allows for people to get we'll pull it out when it's necessary. And because that's tracked and managed by the wallet, right, it's done with user permission, so that users are able to protect the privacy of their data and give consent for any application to kind of see which particular UTXOs are stored in a particular basket within the wallet, right? And so by doing things that way, it allows us to essentially create a system where data can be portable across applications as well, right? So for example, in a healthcare application, somebody could create some data, and then maybe somebody has a different app that they've built that has a better user experience for viewing that health information. And so the second application could plug into that same basket controlled by that user within their wallet and actually access the UTXO. And then again, with user permission, it could represent it by decrypting it and then displaying it. And the data itself is held by the user in that way, and then it's just the apps plug into it. And so UTXOs are a way to record data, but also I would say they can convey value, they can convey obligation, they can convey rights, and the way they do that is by having a script. And the script can be a smart contract, it can be anything, and it can have a number of satoshis in it, right? Because for those unaware, a UTXO is really just a particular script in Bitcoin that has a particular amount of Satoshis, and then whoever fulfills the obligations of that script can, spend it. So if that script contains some data and you want to update it, well, then what you can do is you can spend the old one and you can create a transaction that has an output that replaces it. And then suddenly you've changed what that data is. You've also left history. And so by defining this chain of spends, for example, when we think about data UTXOs, we can describe the series of updates that have happened with that data over time. And so it's almost a memory bank in 2 dimensions, because you can think about, well, this is the sequence of updates that have happened to this particular data point, and this is proven on the blockchain and recorded with the history of a particular UTXO. But then also different types of data, different data points, each one in a different basket where any app can plug into it with user consent, but they're all separate UTXOs, and so they store different things. And so those 2 models, those 2 mental models, I would say, are useful for understanding the way that UTXOs work and the interplay they have for the average developer within the system. And then everything else is really just related to, okay, we're dealing with UTXOs now, right? The UTXOs represent the data, they represent the obligations, the digital assets, the things which we own or interact with, or maybe even we share ownership of a particular token with somebody else, and multiple people could come along to update it or something. But all of the other stuff is just a wrapper around that, because in Bitcoin, tokens can represent anything, and the BRC 100 standard just allows that world of tokens to be opened up and leveraged by developers no matter what they're doing, and it puts the user in control of all of this stuff associated with the tokens that they hold in their baskets, in their wallet, so that only applications with the right consent can actually access them.
Yeah, understood. Really great explanation, and I love the way that you sort of narrowed in on that specific use case, like the health data. I have a couple follow-up questions. One question, this is sort of a question for Degan. This is a question about, okay, so first of all, I understand why you fit so nicely with Ty. It's like the left hand and the right hand, because everything that Ty is describing is completely in line with your vision of SPV, of, high data volume, open data services, interoperability, and creating that competitive market, like Ty was saying, where if someone can come along and provide a better user experience, there shouldn't need to be that vendor lock-in. And I can understand why it's so important to Ty too, because it restores that integrity of the information to the user themselves. But the question I want to get to with Degan is basically, how do you begin to create a library or SDK or a framework when you know that you want to accomplish something that is so, such a grand vision, and then you say, okay, well, we know we want to achieve that, but we actually have to build the open source libraries that can reach that. Do you have to work backwards from the vision? How did you go about sort of prioritizing what needed to be included in the open source libraries that allow for this vision to be achieved?
Well, I mean, multiple attempts is the first answer that comes to mind. So it's not like I had some specific grand vision and I was always in charge of exactly what happened. That's not how it worked. I was at first just a dev at nChain for a very short period of time, just a couple of months. Sort of joining the team to work on code that was going to implement SPV for a payee at the time, and I think back then it was called the SPV tool, or the wallet toolbox. I don't know. I'm getting confused about all the names. Light Client Toolbox. That's what it was called. So that was kind of the first attempt that I was involved in to trying to sort of real world implement something where you could pass a transaction between 2 users, and the receiving party could completely validate the transaction that was being handed to them using Merkle paths and all of that sort of thing. And I was just one of the devs that was working on that. And a couple of devs before me had built the foundational sort of Go, BT, BK, BC, those Go libraries that I was working with to try and bring those tools to fruition. And at the time was working with the TSC on trying to standardize the way, actually that's where I met Ty, I suspect, trying to standardize the way these payments work. So what was the payment process? What was the flow of information between the counterparties? How could we make that sort of stable so that everyone knew what to do while keeping it flexible so that we could have innovation and allow for that? So that was all a sort of balancing act. And then, having to make up formats for things because they didn't exist yet, or the ones that did exist weren't adequate, was the start of, talking with Ty a little bit more in terms of how things could be done. I think by that point, Ty probably had some of that initial sort of eureka moments and building his own stack with his team in his own direction, and that was quite different at the time. Maybe just in flavor, same direction, just a different flavor, and a couple of the libraries in the ecosystem were starting to go stale at that point. Ryan X. Charles was involved with the money button libraries, and that was the kind of go-to library that Scrypt and Babbage's stack were built on. And around that time, I was kind of moving across the BSVA and moving up the ranks there, trying to help get this SPV stuff working. And I kind of realized at that point the base library that everything was built on was very well, it was just built by people who understood Bitcoin slightly differently than I do, and it was missing the functionality that you need to handle SPV, to validate transactions yourself. And it was entirely built around the address-based payment model. It would have functions in there. Well, I don't need to get into that kind of detail, but really the address-based payments was the foundation of that whole library. And so I thought, well, how are we supposed to encourage developers in the ecosystem to build their applications in this way when the fundamental building block, the sort of SDK that they based their app on, wasn't capable of doing that stuff, or didn't have it built in, and certainly was sort of awkward and cumbersome to get that sort of thing working. So fair enough to Ty and team. They did manage to get something working, and it was very much a moving target. In that, at the time, Mappy was the way that things were being broadcasted. There was get Merkle proof JSON RPC to an SB node. Then there was get Merkle proof 2, which was a TSC Merkle proof standard. And since we've moved on to bumps, which is an attempt to unify into a single format. So a BSV unified Merkle path format. That's why it's bump. But I mean, I suppose long story short, it was through realizing that you had to start from the ground up to change the way in which you, I mean, libraries in general. I mean, I'm no computer scientist. I really worked my way across into this industry from elsewhere. But my understanding now, and partly influenced by Siggy, who I see is listening, trying to remember what he's told me in the past, because I've learned tremendously from him. The libraries are really just a way to help the developer think about things. That's really what they're doing. So if you have certain language in the libraries that is in favor of SPV because the way the transaction is constructed relies on a previous transaction and its Merkle path, then you're giving the developer the sort of mental model they need to understand how to build applications that rely on that technique. And that just didn't exist before. So, of course, the obvious partner to work with to develop these libraries was Ty and team, because they had, I would say they had gotten closest to how I imagined it would work. So, I mean, it just made sense to work with them because they were really in the same mindset as me, and they had the same values and the same understanding of why it was important. And then after doing that initial SDK with them, I realized that, well, actually, a lot of their tooling that they'd built around their sort of extended version of the old money button library was close enough to what I was looking for that it would be silly to rebuild that stuff in my own flavor. And it made a lot more sense to just partner with them and start advocating for what they had already figured out. And so really credits to Ty for figuring it out from nothing. And I guess my part in it was identifying that they had got it right, and I wanted to join that bandwagon and support it as much as I could in my capacity at the BSVA.
Let me ask you this, Degan, about, you mentioned stuff about Ty here, and recently Ty Babbage had been posting about how Bitcoin he said Bitcoin is the internet, and then he says HTTP is equal to BRC 100, and I really want to get your feedback on. I tried to ask the AIs about that, and it yeah, the AIs were even confused. So maybe you can help us understand.
So I'd love to ask the AIs about some of Brett's analogies. I think that would be hilarious because they're so salient. But really, usually, no one else could think of them. It's brilliant. HTTP. It's the language that the markup language that everyone's speaking on the web, I suppose. And I guess the analogy fits because, if everyone's speaking BRC language, then they're all going to be compatible. And we've found with HTTP, there's loads of different frameworks that all work in their own languages, yet they spit out HTTP because that's the universal. So I can see why that's an apt observation, and certainly something to aspire to. If we can get BRC 100 as ubiquitous as HTTP, then we will all be in very comfy chairs, put it that way.
Yeah.
One more question, just on the topic of the compute with integrity and the open source libraries with that Degan was talking about. The question is just about how important on a scale of 1 to 10 is push drop to that vision of computing with integrity. And then can you describe and explain push drop for the average person? Maybe this is a question for Ty. And how does it fit in with that overall vision?
Yeah, I want to answer before Ty jumps in and maybe fills in some of the background of the design decisions around push drop. I guess from my perspective, when I saw push drop, I was like, yeah, that's actually what I've been calling it too, because that's what you do. You push data and you drop it, and then you have whatever locking script you want. We were kind of doing similar things at ELAS for several years without actually calling it that specifically. But in terms of the importance of the specifics, well, I don't know about that. Like out of 10, it's probably like 5 or something. So the important part from my perspective is that you have some data carrier, so some way of getting arbitrary data, which allows you to define your own protocols on top of it. So data carrier tokens is a good thing. That's the push part or push drop part. And well, maybe the drop part is part of the other benefit, which is just, and then you can kind of define whatever the conditions by which you want to be able to redeem this token. So it's a data carrier, and it's an arbitrarily complex locking script. That's how I think of that type of token. And the TypeScript SDK, well, and all the SDKs that implement push drop at the moment, and maybe if we refer to it specifically as the one that's in the SDKs, then we're talking about more specific on the locking side, where the script tends to be a pay to public key. And that public key is associated with, well, whatever you want to suppose, but that is that's one particular type of locking condition. Whereas previously, I guess I would have said, well, you can define whatever locking conditions you want. It's not really that important. But it's a really nice wrapper, and what it does again is just simplify it reduces the mental load on the developer that's building an application. That's what I love about it. So usually when you're creating tokens, you want to put some sort of data on chain for future reference. and you want to be able to define some locking conditions. And that's usually you want a specific person to be able to unlock this thing. The push drop does those two things really eloquently. It allows you to pass in a BRC 100 wallet interface and some simple arguments like who is the counterparty, just give the public key for them, and what data do you want to be included in this token. So the fact that it simplifies what could be unboundedly complicated into something that's really easily to for any blockchain developer, that's really powerful. So that's why it's 5 rather than 0. It is important, but it's not, it's not be all and end all. But that's just my opinion. I'm kind of curious about how Ty feels about push drop.
I was going to say 4 out of 10. But yes, it's about there. You know, it's an example, but it's also a bit of a suggestion or quasi standard way of doing something like data tokens. So if you're doing electricity meters, right, for example, and you want to tokenize the data, or you want to just record the data of what a particular meter reading was at a particular time, you could use push drop, and you could put the data. You could encrypt it if you want it to be private, or you could publish it for transparency if it was something more public in nature, right? Like depending on what you're doing. But yeah, there's these data fields in push drop, and you can just decide, okay, well, field number 1 is my token type identifier, so I'm just going to pick something, and let's say this is what my token starts with. Field number 2, you could say, I don't know, this is the number of kilowatts. Field number 3, this is the number of hours, right? Whatever the case is, just whatever your data is that you want to put on chain, you can record it into a token, and then you can later, redeem it. So you can use push drop as a way to store data on the blockchain, and then also lock the token so that a particular person can later go and update. And you just basically say, okay, here's the public key of the person who owns this token, and then make sure that when the token gets spent, and that person has a choice of either terminating the token by not creating a new one, or they could update it by having a replacement in their spending transaction. That's just kind of a little helper for people who want to do data-rich tokenization. And then if you want, you can have more complex locking conditions. So if you wanted to write your own low-level Bitcoin script and pass a custom block into the push drop token, you could then combine the data fields kind of mental model that push drop gives you with something more complex depending on your use case. But really, yeah, it's just about letting people more easily build stuff on the blockchain. And that's the recurring theme. Like if I talk about the importance of one thing for the rest of my life, it's going to be how insanely important it is to let people have an easier time building stuff. And push drop is one of those tools, right? It's not the most important tool. I would say the most important is probably just the separation between wallets and apps and the BRC 100 standard that allows that to be the case. Getting that into every device on Earth and in the hands of every user on Earth. But push drop is something that once we have BRC 100 wallet interface, Degan mentioned, you can pass the wallet into push drop so that it can just kind of automatically help you create these data-rich tokens. Push drop, its role is just it's to let developers have that kind of freedom without making those developers go through a course on how Bitcoin script works and how to use the opcodes. And that way, if they're not quite as familiar with that as they would like, they still have the ability to write scripts that are secure and that properly handle the intricacies of just creating a script and then redeeming it, letting somebody update the token, and things like that. I would say normally push drop tokens, generally at least, will have one Satoshi in them, so they don't have a lot of value because their main focus is to, model some process or some piece of data to make record of something, or maybe the ownership with that public key that I talked about earlier on the blockchain. But it's just a cool little helper for all the devs out there that just want to play around with, seeing what they can't record with their UTXOs. And then because they're UTXOs, you can also, put them in baskets, like I talked about earlier with the wallet, right? You can store push drop tokens in a basket. And if you want an example of doing that, you can look at the to-do list code, which is public on GitHub. It shows an example of, an app where we store an encrypted to-do list token, which uses push drop for its data in a BRC100, wallet basket. So there's that, but you can also, put them in overlays or send them directly to another user using the message box. Different ways of building. Really excited to see what people do with push drop and that type of, data-rich token abstraction that it gives people for modeling all different kinds of use cases.
Thank you.
Well, Ty, I would love if you could take an opportunity here to share a little bit about bitgenius.net for those that are interested in building on BSV. I feel like it's a really important AI companion for them to use. If this is a good time for you to do that.
I don't know if you want to ask, if you go on bitgenius.net, just to make sure it's as accessible as possible. We currently allow sign up via Web 2.0, which uses an email address and a password. But as more people start to use it, I think I'm going to switch to Web 3 with Metanet, BRC100 wallet, and actually charge a micropayment, kind of like how Tool BSV does. But anyways, yeah, you can go on bitgenius.net and you can create an account. It's the chat GPT of BSV, and it allows everybody to get their simple questions answered when it comes to the tech that underpins the new Metanet standards and tools that are being made available. So you can ask your push drop questions, or your wallet basket questions, or your overlay networks questions to BitGenius, and it will answer them in the level of detail that it thinks it can, right? Sometimes it makes mistakes. Sometimes it's not fully accurate, just like any AI model. But yeah, it's a good little way to just, you got basic questions or things that, maybe you feel a little bit like, oh, I don't want to, waste everybody's time by asking that. But you can ask the AI first, and then even if you don't get the answer you're looking for, it might help you to, to just to learn a little bit more, and then maybe ask a more informed question or something like that. Once again, yeah, recurring theme, right? Let's make it as easy as possible for developers to understand these new capabilities and how we can use them inside of new types of apps that use the capabilities that the BSV blockchain provides. So you can check it out if you want, and I think people have used it to do even like marketing, like if they have a particular business idea, or maybe they want to approach a particular industry with BSV blockchain, and they want to know how the capabilities of the new the Metanet system align with what a particular industry is and the core problems that industry faces. BitGenius is really good at helping to map some of the tools and technologies and capabilities that we have onto use case verticals, and actually create the right messaging for people who are involved in the marketing and those aspects of it too. So I don't know, you can check it out. It's a you'll probably be able to fool it. You'll probably be able to get it to whatever. It's I did my best to train that AI the best way that I could. I fed a bunch of information, and I created a retrieval augmented generation pipeline using vector database, just some text embedding models, things like that, to get it to behave as best as I can. But one recurring bug I found is it doesn't know who it is. If you ask BitGenius, can you please tell me about the Genie system? It's someone pointed it out recently to me. It's like, I'm sorry, but I don't have any idea what It's funny because of that. But anyways, yeah, BitGenius is a it's an AI companion for BSV developers, BSV influencers, community leaders, anybody who is interested in understanding BSV and helping others to understand or build things with BSV. So definitely check it out and ask it all of the questions that you are too scared to ask any of us. Although I should also mention that there's no such thing as a silly question, and you should not be too scared to ask a question about this technology, because it's extremely important to just build the kind of ecosystem where we can bring more people in and we can get more people on board with this stuff and show more of what this stuff can do, so that everybody can can have the best understanding and create cool stuff. So yeah, that's BitGenius, I would say, and some of its strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I found it pretty helpful when I was just trying to ask a few questions about cold storage here. If we could shift back to Degan, I would love to kind of go through, a little lower level conversation here about what you built with the secure.atx.systems, which I noticed you can only open on Chrome. It doesn't work on Safari, but I don't remember what happened with Simply Cache, or why I felt the need to sweep everything out of that and put it back into my Rock wallet. But I did have stuff stored for a long time on that. And then some kind of conversation that I saw happening, I took everything out of that, and I've been just like waiting to figure out a new cold storage situation, which it looks like you have created here. And prior to our call today, I went ahead and printed out a few different the three shards, and then the five shares, just to kind of have it in front of me as we discussed it today. And I wanted to just get a little bit more information on exactly what I'm looking at here with these printouts of the QR codes
Sure.
and all
Um,
that.
well, I want to address one thing just real quick
Sure.
off the bat. So the application itself is, as I was speaking before, really about providing paper wallet services to the Metanet desktop. The app does work in Safari, but what Safari doesn't work with is Metanet desktop. So I want to explain that really quick, because it's an important point. So Metanet desktop, what it's actually doing is it's running a server locally on your machine, and it's allowing the web browser to call that local server. So that means there's communication happening between multiple applications on your desktop. That's how that's working. And Safari has strict rules about whether or not you're allowed what's called mixed content, which means the local server that we're running for Metanet desktop is HTTP, but it's expecting, because the web app you're on is HTTPS, for the local app to also be HTTPS. So that's the problem. That's why Safari is not allowing you to use all these web apps with Metanet desktop yet. But I wanted to note that because it's something that we do plan to fix. The fix is something like this. You have to do a self-signed certificate. And the Metanet desktop server could be transport layer secure, but you would have to kind of click a button to allow the application to sort of sign that certificate and have that be one of the trusted certificates that your machine accepts. So anyway, long story short, that we can fix that eventually, and it should work in any browser thereafter.
Okay.
Yeah, that I just wanted to explain why that happens, right? It's not a bug, it's like a known thing.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question before you go a little deeper there.
Mhm.
So I do have the Metanet client on my device here, and is there a way to open this? Because on your how it works section number 1, it says generate a cryptographically secure random key using your browser's crypto API and divide that into multiple shares using the Shamir's secret sharing scheme.
Right.
So is that like an incognito browser on Chrome when you say crypto API? Because I'm not sure exactly what that is, the browser's crypto API.
Hey,
Um,
yeah, that's a totally fair question, and this
okay.
is just one of those cases where I'm living on my own planet where everyone is developer. So apologies for that.
It's okay.
So every modern browser has a little crypto module in it, and all I mean by that is inside the browser's code itself, it exposes sort of very common cryptographic functions. Um, that run really quickly. And so they package that with the browser itself. And all I mean there is that that's the cryptography that's going to be used when you generate a random key using this application. So I was just trying to explain that it's using the cryptographically secure random number generator in your browser. So if you don't trust the browser, then don't use that for generating these keys, basically. But yeah, generally speaking, those are considered reasonably secure, and it's used by every Web3 company on the planet, really.
Sorry if that's a silly question, but
It's not.
not all
No,
developers here. So,
exactly. No, this is
so I do have the
useful.
apps open at the in the Metanet desktop. Is
Mhm.
there a browser in here yet? I can't remember. Is there a better one that you suggest using besides Chrome or Safari for this type of thing? Because I did do it in Chrome, and then I printed them out with a USB connected printer that's not connected to Wi-Fi. So I'm doing the best
Nice.
I know to do. But other than that, like what other direction do you have for generating these keys to initially?
So if you've printed it, those keys have been generated. So printing is just for recovery purposes. So really, as soon as you select the number of threshold shares needed, so the number of total shares and the threshold you want to be able to recover them with. Once you've made those choices and hit that generate backup shares button,
Mm,
the cryptographic sort of generation is done already. It's very quick. So it might take up to like 30 seconds if you're doing 100 shares, but it should be pretty quick with any sort of number you can count on your hands.
okay.
Sort of unnoticeably quick. But
So,
yeah, so go on. Yeah,
well,
more
go ahead. What
questions.
were you gonna say?
I was going to say, once you save that PDF and once you print that out, any I don't know what your settings were, but let's say 2 of 5, any two of the and I'm going to take a look at the document so I remember what I called them. I think just shares. Yeah,
Mhm.
any two of those shares is going to work for recovering the private key, which they encode.
Okay,
So,
so on the paper, there's one of three. So I did um,
okay.
the first one is just 3 shares. So it has looks like I guess a private key and then a public key and then another private key. Is that what I'm seeing on the paper here?
So the top one is not a full private key. And this is an important point. So this is a share of a private key. So
Yeah.
if someone was to find that piece of paper, they really couldn't do very much with it on its
Okay.
own. They would need all of the pieces of paper. And
Okay.
that's why they're always on separate pages. So you can kind of give them to different people or hide them in different places or put them in different secure box.
Which I love because you couldn't do that with the Simply Cash one.
Right, right. Um, so the top one is really the share of the private key. The middle one is just a public key, which might be useful if you want to sort of derive keys from it. So that would kind of be like your identity key equivalent. Um, so if you wanted to make payments to keys that are derived from this key rather than the key itself, that's what you would use. But the bottom one is not a private key. It's actually just an address. So if you wanted to have similar experience to Simply Cash, I suspect the Simply Cash method just gives you an address, and you could just pay to that address, and then you can kind of use what's on chain to look at the balance. You can always accept payments with that address,
Okay.
but you would need a threshold of the private key shares and this application or a similar one to sort of recombine them into the private key, so you could then spend the funds that are held by that address.
Okay. So after you print out the QR code,
Mhm.
you click the green button at the bottom that says you stored them safely, and then it gives you another page that's, create a new backup confirmed and wallet ready. It's got your wallet address, which is the one I guess you would put into like your Rock wallet if you want to send payments from Rock wallet over to this.
Right.
And it's got the super long public key. And then down underneath that, it says fund your wallet, send BSV to your new address and complete the process. So
Yeah.
I put, like one BSV in there. And then when I hit send from wallet, it didn't do anything. So that's not where is that where you send money out of this, or what
Oh
is
yeah.
that?
Yeah, you did everything right. So if you're using Chrome and nothing happens when you hit send from wallet, um, then it just means that your Metanet desktop is not jumping in. Basically, your Metanet desktop should focus, as in you should switch to that app automatically, and it should prompt you to like authorize a payment to this address essentially. So if
So
that's not
that
happening, then
there
there's some
would
sort of
only
incompatibility with the browser you're using.
Okay, so that function where the fund your wallet section would only work if I was in the Metanet desktop.
It's not that you need to be in it, so to speak. It's that it needs to be running in the background. So
Okay.
basically, you run Chrome and Metanet desktop, and you just use Chrome like normal. And anytime an app like this needs anything from your wallet, your Metanet desktop will flip into focus and give you a prompt saying, "Hey, this application wants to do something with your wallet." You
Okay.
either reject that or approve that, and it will flip you back to your browser where you're interacting with the application.
Okay, I see why that didn't work, because I did that on my old Dell laptop that has a USB port, because I don't have a USB port here on my Mac. So I used my old computer to hook up my printer to print this stuff out, and I don't have Metanet desktop on that computer. So that's
Gotcha.
probably why that
Gotcha.
didn't do anything.
That's exactly why I didn't do anything. Yeah. So
Okay.
I guess I need to give better feedback in the user interface here, saying, like connect to wallet or something. I build all these apps with the assumption that everyone knows what they're doing, which is my downfall, really. Which is why other app developers can jump in and build things that are a little bit more user friendly.
This is why I invited you on, because I really wanted to learn. Yeah, we're all doing the best we can here. This is a huge topic to try to digest everything there is about Bitcoin, but I do know that storing it safely is very important. Obviously, we want people to be using it and not just hodling it like the BTC crew tells everyone. But there is a lot of people that are only able to hold right now because there's not a lot we can do with BSB
I
at
hear
the
you.
moment.
I
So
hear you. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I hope that this is a way to make it a little bit more convenient for people to, yes, secure any sort of holdings they have, but also easily move those holdings into Metanet desktop, where they do have access to the various apps that are available in the ecosystem that are compatible with this. Which I realize is a small number at the moment, but we're doing our best to grow that number. And there's some great developers that we met at the Austin Hackathon, and I think there are going to be more in Oregon soon and in London soon thereafter, and Asia as well. So hopefully that number of apps that are going to be compatible with this system is going to increase over time, and they're going to compete with each other, and therefore they're going to get better for the end user.
cool. Well, I'm grateful that there's a new cold storage option, and thank you so much for coming on to help me figure out exactly how to use it. And anybody else who has any questions, you're welcome to come up. I know Gavin had to switch to mobile. Are you back yet, Gavin, or? I don't know if he's able to come on and continue hosting at the moment with having to switch over to mobile. I don't know if it's glitching for him or anything like that. So
Uh, uh,
There he is. Hey, there's one more
yeah, go
thing.
ahead, Casey. I'm gonna have a hard time on mobile here, so I'm gonna be cutting in and out. I'm on the over the bridge right now on the water, so please
Very
hold.
good. I
sure, no, I
have some
just,
more to share, if I may, Casey.
yes, please.
Yeah, so the recovery process is super important as well. Before putting any significant amount of BSV in any address that's secured with the backup and recovery system here, I would always test it with an amount you're willing to lose first, and make sure that you can recover it. And that just, we're just double checking that all of the mechanisms are working properly and there's no anomalies. Now, this code has all been audited by a third party at this stage. We're in the review process, so I'm not going to mention who's auditing it or what their conclusion was, but I didn't release this app until that had happened. So I'm confident that everything is clean on the inside in terms of cryptography. But the recovery process is important to sort of walk people through as well. So on the recover tab, you can hit the start QR scanner. If you're on mobile, that would probably be more convenient. And if you have a PDF on your local desktop, then you can kind of just copy paste the values. Now, I'm realizing in hindsight that it doesn't really explain what you're supposed to do here. So it is that private key share that you're supposed to copy paste. So either scan or copy paste at the very top of every page. And you just do them one at a time. So you can paste one of those, hit the add share button. And
Okay.
as soon as you've done the first one, it's going to give you an idea of how many shares that you need to add before it's going to be able to calculate the key. So
Okay.
in your case, I think it was 2 of 3 system.
I
So
printed
you
out one that had 3 and one that had 5 just to play with them
nice.
and make sure that I got it down before I do add any significant amount.
Perfect. Well, the number we're looking for is just the threshold. So if it's a 2 of whatever, then you'll only need any 2 of those recovery keys at the top of each page, and then it will automatically calculate the private key. So if you're using something like Rock Wallet thereafter, you can
Hmm.
just copy the recovered private key, and Rock Wallet have a sweep feature, which allows you to just kind of enter a private key and it will add it to your wallet keychain. And then you'll basically just have the funds and you can move them into your main wallet. If you do have Metanet desktop running, and there are some BSV associated with that address, then you can basically just hit a button and it will import those funds into your Metanet desktop again. So that would be the sort of off ramp from Paper Wallet back into the Metanet.
Okay. And you do recommend people, just for everyone else in the audience that might not know this, to try to use a printer that is not connected to Wi-Fi to print these out, correct?
Right. So if we're putting our schizophrenic hats on and trying to be as secure as possible, and actually I encourage anyone who's sort of interested in development, and this might not include you, but it's just for others listening maybe, to actually go ahead and clone the whole repository from GitHub, and run the program locally on a machine that isn't connected to the internet. And then you can be sure that, even if something bad was happening with the code, then none of the transactions that are generated on that machine are going to get to the internet anyway. So they're not going to get on Bitcoin. So that's like the ultra safe version, is an air gapped machine to generate these things. And then, like you said, with the USB cable, print to your printer, and then there's no way any of that can, and then burn the laptop just in case.
Okay, clone the repo on GitHub. Can you just repeat that first part? I was taking some notes because I got the printer part down, but I didn't do the other part.
Sure. I actually, come to think of it, it's maybe not even public. I should make that public. So here's me making it public. It's at so github.com/BSB hyphen blockchain /, what did I call it? Oh, actually, hyphen demos. And the repository is / secure backup and recovery hyphenated. So yeah, I'll share.
Is this the github.com/bsv-blockchain-demos secure key backup and recovery? Is that the link?
That's the one.
Okay, I'll throw that in the nest.
Awesome. Yeah, so it will give you instructions on that page on the README there in terms of like how to clone. So it says installation, clone the repository, and it gives you some code there you can paste into your terminal if you're that way inclined.
Okay.
But yeah, at the moment, the application is running in Vercel, which is a popular service for hosting this type of application. So that's what it's doing at the moment. And you can read the code. So, if you don't want to run it yourself, you can at least read the source code, or do you know what? You could give it to something like Claude or Grok or ChatGPT, get it to review the code for you. And then even if you're not a developer, you can ask it to point out any security flaws. And hopefully it comes back clean, but by all means, register an issue if you find any flaws with it. That's the point of open source. We're going to improve this software together, and the more eyes that are on it, the less likely there are to be problems with the code. That's kind of the point: is robustness through transparency.
Definitely. Well, thank you. I'm excited to after this preliminary call here to actually try it out. But at this point, if anybody else has any questions, please come up. We'll have the experts
Yeah,
on
there
stage.
was a question about what is the Kellenschweller? Was it Quang that asked about this in the chat I saw earlier? What is the Kellenschweller countdown? Degan?
What? What's that mean? I mean, that's my name, right? Kellen Schuyler is my name.
There's some sort of a meme going around about the Kellenschweller countdown, and I don't know what
Oh,
it
really?
means. So Casey, do you know about this?
I know at the end of every Satoshi show, he says the Kellenschweller countdown and goes through that, but I'm not really sure exactly what it is.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm so
It sounds
honored
like
that
a need
there's
to
a
know.
meme
It's a
about
need.
you.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't even know how the meme works. I guess so. Maybe you do. It's a need to know basis only. It's
Maybe I signed an NDA. What can I say? It'll be released soon, TM. No, this is the first I've heard of that, but
Yeah, so go check
sounds
out
great.
any of Satoshi's shows. That's how he closes off every one.
Yeah, I guess
Well,
I've watched a bunch, but I must be missing the most recent ones, or maybe I'm leaving before the end or something.
yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I was never sure exactly what it was, but would love to hear more once you dig into it, what it is exactly. So,
I'm not sure, but certainly I met Sean a long time ago in London, running the London Bitcoin meetup, and he has fascinating stories. I'll tell you that much.
yeah, I love his show. My daughter, every time we listen to it, she sings the intro song, and then her favorite part is at the end when it goes, "The king still has one more move." She sings that or yells that out every time. So I think it's funny.
Also, that's reminded me I'm going to go pick up my daughter from school, so I should probably head. Thank you so much for having me on, though.
Cool. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And we will definitely do this again. If any other questions arise, I'll hit you up and let you know we need you again. So have a great evening and talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Anytime.
Appreciate
yeah.
it.
Thanks, Degan.
Cheers, guys. Bye bye.
And I'll
Ty,
be going.
did you?
I'm going to London, so for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. Mitch is gonna. I mean, oh, Mitch is like. There's gonna be some sort of an event before in. I don't know what day. It's the 21st of October. So we should
Something's
all.
going on in London.
Yeah, there's something going on there. So we should all meet.
Yeah, you should come to London, guys.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna there's gonna be something, but you know, we'll see what that is on the week of LBC. So I would encourage people to. I'm gonna be there. I don't know where, but we're gonna be somewhere in London, and it's gonna be interesting. So we should all like meet up and build some fun things, and maybe get together for an event of some kind. Would be good to see everybody in person, and just talk about the future and build some cool apps.
Yeah, I know last year we were planning something with Joelle for a dinner prior to the event. So we should probably get in touch with him too. And if you'd like to share any info about the next upcoming hackathon right now in Oregon, that'd be a good time because I think that comes up before the London event, right?
Yeah, so October 10th and the 11th in Medford, Oregon, there's a hackathon as well. Lots of people are going to be there building apps, and we're going to give away some cash prizes. I think like $10,000. So that'll be fun. Win $5,000 if you get first place. And I don't know. We'll see who's there too. Like the Oregon event is, on the west coast of the U.S. So if people can't go to London, then they can come to the west coast and vice versa. So you have no excuse, right? There's got to be London and London and Oregon are pretty far apart in the world, and so hopefully it increases the amount of people that we can reach with fun events, app building competitions that use the BRC 100 stack and the new components and capabilities that exist. I'm really just the next phase has been the next phase is very it's all about just getting as many people as possible to build as many things as possible on the Metanet, and then getting as many users as possible on the Metanet. Because one thing you should remember is once somebody joins the Metanet as a user, they can check out every single app, and they don't need to create another Metanet account for every app or something like that. So if we just grow the number of people that happen to have the Metanet on their phone or on their computer or wherever, like it's valuable because then anytime a developer goes to think about building something using these tools, they have that many more people waiting in the wings with zero friction sign up, immediate access to micropayments, digital assets, and all of the cool stuff that we put on the blockchain, and it makes it attractive for developers too. So there's two sides to this network, and one of them is devs and one of them is users. And the hackathon is about growing both of those things. So come to Oregon on the 10th and the 11th of October if you'd like, and then London the 19th through the 26th of October is the week that I'll be there anyways, and some other people from the Babbage team. So that's what we got going on coming up.
I just have a quick question. I remember when we had the last space with Mitch, he had mentioned that he wasn't sure if the implementation that Roy had been building was BRC 100 compatible, but is the Terranode BRC 100 compatible? Is that part going to be?
It's a different part of the network.
Okay.
Right. So when we think about the key components of a mandala network, because we have BSA blockchain is a mandala network. At the center, you have transaction processors whose role is to collect transactions from around the network, create blocks, make sure there's no double spends, and disseminate Merkle paths. And mining is part of that process. That's where Terranode is. And then second layer out, you have overlay services, which track and coordinate and manage subsets of the blockchain based on which UTXOs they care about, and they admit particular UTXOs to defined sets of topics. They collect those from the people involved with those networks, and they also provide lookup services to make sure that people involved can get insights into the particular data that they need to, create valuable use cases. And the final layer of the mandala network, if you think of a mandala like the set of concentric, circles with these different designs and everything, right? The third layer out is got to be transacting parties. So that's the actual users who, have wallets, they use apps, they register their transactions with the blockchain, oftentimes through overlay services or directly with the miners at the middle. But Terranode is just a different part of the network. So it doesn't have anything to do with the way that wallets talk to apps, or the way that transacting parties go about the creation of their transactions, which make it onto the blockchain. It's an extremely important part of the network when it comes to scalability. But BRC-100 is sort of like how your websites talk to your web browser, and then Terranode is sort of maybe more like how the core routers of the internet move petabytes of data every single day, so that the packets on the internet are doing what they should, and so that the network operates efficiently. And so yeah, different wheelhouse. I don't have much to do with Terranode. I know Siggy does, and I know he was might still be listening. Yeah, there he is. Right. So different people, and we specialize and we focus, and it takes a village, and we're here to coordinate and scale out the BSV blockchain, both at the core with things like Terranode, in the middle with things like overlay services, and then on the edges with things like wallets, and making sure that developers have the resources necessary to build the apps that everybody's going to use. I hope that paints a clearer picture of where things are and the different things involved. But for the average user, I would say Terranode is the farthest away component of the network, because yes, it's necessary, and yes, it gives you your Merkle proof, and it processes your transaction, and it allows the network to deliver the value that you might get out of it. But it's kind of like an oil refinery when it comes to you driving your car down the road. It's like, yeah, you get your gas out of the gas station, and you obviously need oil refineries to work in order for the gas to be produced for your car to drive. But you don't really have to think about that very often, as long as it works, does its job, and as long as you can verify everything that you need to using SPV, Section 8 of the white paper, and make sure that your wallet is doing what it should, and all the apps that you use are doing what they should.
Thank you for explaining that. I just was curious after hearing Mitch say that. So yeah, please, open forum if anybody else has any questions. Otherwise, I motion that we should probably close it out. So this is kind of short and sweet for the people that are just interested in cold storage. But Gavin, did you have anything else to add, or?
Feel free to come on up if you got questions as well. Happy to talk to people.
Cool. Well, yeah, unless someone requests here in the next couple of minutes, you want to go around the horn for closing thoughts, Ty and Brett?
Sure. I mean, just a cool space. Good to talk to everybody and connect some dots here with some of these things. We need to paint a picture of the future that we want. We need to make the narrative cohesive, and we need to bring people together through our shared values and interests and goals, so that we get where we're going in a way that allows everybody to build cohesively and in a structured way towards the ultimate destination, which for me is creating an internet that I can bear to use, right? That has better incentives, fewer passwords, more privacy, these types of things. And that's the BSV Metanet. So creating lots and lots of transactions is a big part of that. But more so, I think, is creating lots and lots of value and allowing lots of new apps to get built really easily. because that's what's going to enable Bitcoin to demonstrate its value to the world. So in order for that narrative to be cohesive, in order for that picture to make sense in people's minds, we think in stories, and we need to make sure that these components deliver the value they need to the people they need to, at the time and in the place they need to, in order for that story to make sense for them, because then the dots connect in people's minds. And then, they have this moment where they realize that they're able to achieve something here that they couldn't achieve before. And so, that's a valuable thing for us to think about as leaders, influencers, marketers, people who are creating these things and trying to spread them around. We gotta make sure that the components that we're creating are not going to fail. We got to make sure that they support the picture that we're painting in people's minds about the future that BSV stands for and it stands to create. If we do that, and if we lower the bar for devs, lower the bar for users, and just continue to harp on the things that make the network unique and valuable for businesses and for the ecosystem at large, then I think we'll get to some really fun times ahead where we get to show some people some really cool technology, and we get to do so in a way that just the average person can really get on a level about. Like, people see what's wrong with Web 2.0 and with the way that things are now, with all these data breaches, fragmentation, identity silos, where little bits of yourself are just spread around everywhere. And that makes us weaker, and it makes us less coherent in our own stories and our own lives. So by fixing these things and creating standards for interoperable payments, better privacy, and a way that we can find and connect with each other across applications with data portability, these things are extremely important, and I just wanted to emphasize them. Because one of the most important metrics that I think we as leaders of this space should focus on is time to first magic. And what I mean by that is, when we walk up to a random person and we start talking about BSV blockchain, how many seconds does it take for something to click in their minds, or where they realize, wait, if I use this technology, I can have more power than I've ever had before. I can achieve something that I previously could not, or I can understand a valuable thing that I previously, was unable to realize, right? Whether it's tempomusic.net, where I could, pay an artist directly in order to, hear a piece of their work that they uploaded on there. And then I know that I'm supporting them without supporting a platform like Spotify. Or whether I'm a developer, and it means now I can build an app where I can identify my users without passwords, and I don't need to pester them to, go through the OAuth process and give away another little piece of themselves to Google or Meta by building a freemium model with all these ads and this data collection machine, right? That's magic for developers too. So time to first magic, I guess, is my closing thought, right? How short can we make the process of bringing somebody into the fold and getting them to see something magical about the technology that we are creating and connecting with something that they really care about, right? Because if we do that, then I think we're going to win the battle for attention and win the battle for network effect and for getting this technology to be relevant and solving the two sides of the network effect problem that I talked about, right? So number of apps on BRC100, right? And the number of users on BRC100. Because if we do that, then we have a cohesive narrative, and the narrative is reinforcing because the incentives align properly towards competition and towards making the experiences even better and addressing the usability issues with wallets, because there's not just one. Addressing the usability issues with applications, because if one of them goes off the rails, you can move to another one and still have access to your same data stored in those output baskets. So combining all of these pieces together, identity, privacy, micropayments, digital assets on BSV, and for God's sake, fewer passwords on the internet, right? With all of these services and not having to re-enter all of your data everywhere. Combining all of these things into a structured and cohesive narrative is what is going to allow this technology to succeed. And so I look forward to helping everybody here think this way and message this way and get where we're going with the message that we're here to share to the world about what Bitcoin is and what it's good for. It's not just some crypto scam or something like that everybody's thought about in the past. It's not some enigmatic anti-governmental force. It's for giving people power over their data, over their money, and over their lives. And I look forward to helping build that future. And I just want to thank every one of you for everything that you've done to make that reality possible, because you're here in the very early stage, and so you have an outsized ability to make an impact on people as they go about building and as they go about thinking what Bitcoin is, what it's good for, what the Metanet is, and why we need a new version of the internet. So you have true power to make an impact on people around you, to spread messages of hope about the future instead of fear, and to give people a sense of belonging when it comes to this technology and how we can make it the best it can be. If we do that, I think that the future is really bright, and that we can be excited about leaving a good legacy for our impact, and for escaping from this web of deception that has been dominant for so long, and these cynical narratives, this disinformation campaign that happens globally. I think that we can be better than that, and I think that with the tools that we're creating, if we can only map them onto the value that people already believe in, values like freedom, truth, autonomy for the individual, things like that, then we're going to resonate with people in the world, and that's what's going to lead to our success. So yeah, maybe a little bit rambly here with my closing thought, but anyways, yeah, thank you all for being here and doing your part. You all have significant ability to positively impact the future through your messages, through what you build, through the way that you interact with this technology and with others. Just remember to keep it genuine. Don't let the devil on the one side of your shoulder, get the best of you when you're in debates with people. And just try to stay humble and be here for the right reasons, and speak your truth. And if we all do that, then we can get to some fun things down the road. So anyways, that's enough from me. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Ty. I want to thank you for all your hard work. We saw something this week that was really a good indicator of things to come, which is the way in which Ty reviewed the Galaxy Node software and just the temperament that was being exchanged there, where it was just very much about a call to unity, a call that this is an open public network, and the value that we contribute to it benefits us all. And it doesn't make sense to form these factions, these tribalistic factions, because at the end of the day, it's about proof of work. Ty, I think, did demonstrate that in a really profound way, but also I think Roy demonstrated that by being open to all of Ty's feedback. It's a good reminder that this is the mentality that we have to have. I was just laying in bed this morning thinking about this, what opportunity we have in front of us. And it struck me that imagine 15 or 16 years ago, Satoshi Nakamoto invented a technology that allows us to instantly, for less than a penny, transport ourselves to any place on the planet. And a few people started using this technology, found out that it was really cool. We could visit a holiday in places that we'd never been before. We can holiday in Tahiti for a weekend because we can use this instantaneous teleportation technology that Satoshi Nakamoto invented. And then imagine this was being used for 7 or 8 years, and all of a sudden, big airline companies came along and said, hey guys, let's slow down on this for a second. We think this is really cool technology, but instead of teleporting you to any vacation destination on the planet, instead we think that only 7 people should be able to use this per day, and it should only teleport you to an airline ticket desk where we can sell you a plane ticket to any place on the planet. And this is a much better judicious use of this technology. Everyone would be up in arms with pitchforks and torches, clearly seeing that the reason why this is being, the wool is being pulled over people's eyes is because this is a massive threat to the, to the financial interests of these airline companies. And yet somehow we don't see, everyone on this call does, but, somehow so many people can't see the exact same thing when it's being done in the payment space. And so, yeah, I just want to echo Ty's thoughts. I want to thank everyone that's on this call right now, just, helping to educate other people about this, helping to, to use that banner of inclusivity, even if you disagree with some people about certain things, the fact that it's an open public network built on proof of work is just an indicator that, that the more inclusive we can be, even to ideas that we don't necessarily fully agree with, I think the better off we all are. And that's my message in closing.
Thank you, Brett. I love it. This has been a very informational space, and let's go ahead and close it out. Gavin, are you available to speak, or are you still not having good service? So I think we'll just go ahead and say we will hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And one of these days, I really look forward to having another conversation about Terranode. And I'm going to join the Metanet Academy here soon, even though I'm not a developer, just because I want to continue to learn and just keep picking up things through osmosis of listening to all you guys talk. So we'll just keep digesting as we can, and I will see you guys all at the top. I don't know how to end the space. I think Gavin has to push that button, but I'm gonna head out, and you guys are
Thanks
welcome.
everybody for being here, and we'll chat again soon. I don't know if until Gavin hits the button or whatever, if you want to stick around, that's fine. But I guess just come up if you got questions. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you around. So thanks everybody.
Welcome to the stage, guys. I see Mitch and Derek, both. You guys are welcome to say hello. How's it
Yeah,
going?
hey, I've got a little bit of time. I just wanted to talk to Ty about Gateway
Sure.
and see what was going on.
Gateway.cash.
No, aren't you guys building like a new money button-ish implementation?
Yeah. So we have gateway.cash, which is a kind of open source, BRC 100 centric version of, what was Money Button, right? So Money
Nice.
Button was a centralized server where everybody could process their payments through that server and have this code on their website where, you could swipe to pay with BSC using this Money Button. But yeah, gateway.cash is an app that we built that it's kind of similar, except it's all open source. You can run your own server, and you can have different kinds of buttons for doing different kinds of things, and track all the payments that you've received to a particular button, in a little dashboard. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that code is on gateway.cash. You can go to app.gateway.cash, I think, and that's kind of where the dashboard is. And then all the code is, it's up on GitHub. So nothing too exciting except, just if you have a WordPress site, or if you have a website builder where you can paste in some, some custom HTML code without even having to, have too much experience with, writing a bunch of code, you could copy and paste a payment button onto that site, and then you can give it a payment ID, and then when you go and see, like on your dashboard about, all the payment buttons that you've created, you can tell that somebody has or hasn't, submitted a payment to a particular button. And that way you can do things like accepting payments in BSV for, something that you want to sell, right? So even a physical product, you could have it on your checkout page, and you could dynamically generate a payment button for a purchase if someone wants to pay with, BSV, and then it would integrate directly with their BRC100 wallet. So as long as they have, Metanet desktop on their computer, or Metanet mobile on their phone in the future, right? Then somebody could just pay with BSV directly, and it wouldn't require them to, go through a bunch of steps. And it would then just show up, and you've received the satoshis on your dashboard, and you can fulfill whatever that order is, ship whatever product they've just purchased. So it's a tool for making it easier to accept simple BSV payments from even just a small business, a merchant website, or something like that.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty.
you can run it yourself, or you can use the one Savage runs for you.
It's like a
But
little
it's still
mini
underpins.
CRM kind of. It's like a mini CRM, except your users aren't getting their data harvested. They actually, get to opt in to revealing specific identity traits, and then you get to manage your little dashboard in the background. That's cool. That's a really efficient way to do like small business CRM.
Yeah, I mean, you can see all the payment buttons that you created, and then you can also extend it with things like identity. So you could request something like, I'd like to, know what your email is, so that if I have an issue with your order, right, then I can send you an email and resolve that before shipping it out or something, right? And that can be done in a BRC100 native way as well, using something like certificates through social search. So
Hmm.
you could extend the gateway payment button, because it's open source, right? You could go and just look at how that backend server works, and you could add, support for requesting someone's email, and then their wallet would just ask them, is it okay if this person knows what your email is? And you can say yes or no. And if you say yes, then it'll reveal it. And then, if you say no, then it's up to the merchant whether they want to proceed with that process or not. But yeah, Gateway is open source, and it allows you to build a lot of different things that, certainly people, are going to be able to extend and adapt for whatever use case they have, while making sure that the core primitives of BRC100, the wallet, the identity system, the payment aspects of using BSV satoshis stay at the center, even as those compatibility bridges get built with existing systems like a gateway.cache WordPress plugin, or something to integrate with, WooCommerce or something like that, right?
Hmm.
The building blocks are now there, and we just need some mortar to bind them together with these existing systems. And I think that's going to be a really powerful way to bring a lot of smaller or less technically minded businesses into the fold when it comes to promoting the Metanet as a concept, if it aligns with their values, and promoting the ability to maybe even offer a discount when you pay with BSV, but also something like just creating an easier time for the users, because once everybody gets on board with the Metanet and has a Metanet wallet on their phone or computer, then it's literally just a one-click micropayment. You could have a blog post, and you could sell access to some premium content for 5 or 10 cents, and just one click, and it's there. That sort of thing, I think, is where it's going to go in the future. But for now, yeah, it's an early stage product that, well, I would say, yeah, we do run one instance of it, but the code is there, and it's extensible enough for somebody to really, pull down and customize and make into their own, use case that leverages the BSV blockchain, the BRC 100, wallet standard, and then the Metanet tools in a unique way.
Yeah, I like it. I'm doing a lot of CRM work right now, and this is like exactly what everyone wants. They just want everything integrated so that when the client clicks the button, it comes to their dashboard, they have, the full data access. But a lot of it is predatory on, like, a lot of these businesses are just harvesting people's data, and then all of a sudden you're getting 10 spam emails. And this solves a lot of that and puts the user back at the center. So big respect. I've been checking out the code on the project as I've been working through Metanet Academy, just because there's some more advanced concepts in that repo, with auth middleware and stuff like that. But yeah, really cool. I kind of wanted to hear the lore around your creation of BRC 100, because obviously you had to write a lot of BRCs before you could piece it all together into 100. So was 100 in the back of your mind the whole time, or did you kind of discover it as you pieced everything together? Like, how did that come together?
I was really glad that we were at 99 at that point, because I will admit I actually wrote a few BRCs just about stuff that was important, right? But 93 and 94 could have been put together into one, and then it would have been BRC 99 instead of BRC 100. But I think that BRC 100 has a unique flavor to it in terms of marketing and easy to remember. So I'm glad it came together the way it did. But to answer the question, like before I wrote BRC 1, and actually BRC 0, which in honor of Kurt is the banana-powered Bitcoin protocol in example.md. So there's that. But yeah, we had a version of Metanet. Well, at that time it was called Babbage Desktop. Before that, it was called Rubius, the keeper of keys. And it was the keeper of your keys. And anyways, like it goes way back to like 2021, 2022. So we had a complete system. In fact, BRC 56 was the direct predecessor to BRC 100, and it was the previous version of the spec for this stuff. But BRC 100 is a lot more robust, and it does more of this. We learned a lot over the years to make sure that BRC 100 would be the best it would be. And we had a number of iterations and everything like that. We figured out identity resolution and a few other issues that were, causing it to, making it harder than it needed to be for devs to build apps the best way. So, we started with trying to write one huge BRC as BRC 1. But I was like, no, we really have to break this up into small pieces. And so the first like 40 or 50 BRCs were just listed out originally. I opened a text file and I was like, okay, so we need a BRC for this, and this. And I wrote like 40 of them, maybe 50. And a lot of it was, legacy stuff like BRC 32 is BIP 32, which we don't use. It's, it's got lots of lots of critical problems with BIP 32 that make it just, unusable as a key derivation scheme in the real world when it comes to, app development and stuff. But yeah, the BRCs came together over time, and I didn't know that, when like we only had like the first 50, and then a lot of people started contributing, BRC 59, BRC 74, there were, there's still like a bunch of them that were written by different people. I think Degan wrote the rules of SPV as BRC, 67, which was a revised version of my rules of SPV, which was BRC 9. And anyways, a lot of different pieces came together from, not only just me, but a lot of the other ecosystem participants as well. And that's what ultimately culminated in BRC 100 as this unified kind of structure that pulls together a lot of the prerequisites. I mean, BRC 42 talks about the BSV key derivation scheme and different pieces of the puzzle that need to be solved. BRC 69 enables you to reveal key linkages and things like that. And then there's random BRCs like BRC 59, which is the genealogical identity protocol, if memory serves. And that has absolutely nothing to do with, BSV wallets. It's got, completely different. People just wrote a bunch of BRCs, and then we got close to 100, and I was like, well, maybe we need to tie all the pieces together again and create something, formal, something cohesive, something complete and unified that everybody can build on top of, no matter whether you are a wallet vendor wanting to, implement a way for people to use apps and process transactions on the network and, protect keys and manage permissions and all of that. Or I would say more importantly, if you're an application developer, having a unified target for, the way that your app works so that it only has to plug into one wallet and not like 5 or something. And that way, whatever wallet the user uses, everything is plugged in, to one place. So that's kind of some of the history, and different little specs started to get built up for little building blocks like encryption, signing, the requesting of a transaction from an app to a wallet, and then the wallet gets back to you with a response. And a few other of those pieces, and then it was just a matter of formalizing, building a serializer and a deserializer. You can look at the wallet wire code in the TypeScript SDK. You can look at wallet client for implementations of BRC 100, various substrates, ways that you talk BRC 100 between an app and a wallet, and all of that. But yeah, really, it's just a way to let the ecosystem evolve and put a stake in the ground and say, hey, look, this is a thing that we can use right now to make our lives a lot easier, and that way everybody doesn't have to focus on every problem.
Yeah, man, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It took me probably 4 or 5 times reading it before I saw the vision. But once I saw it, it was like it was the culmination of everything I wanted to see. It because it's ultimate competition, and it brings everything towards providing the best experience for the user. And the businesses have to be on their absolute A game to bring that to fruition and keep going and survive. And I just respect your vision for that so much, because obviously, you could have just held on to it, and you could have, but rather you invited the competition. And I'm excited to start competing, man. So I got to drop off, but just wanted to let you know that I appreciate your work, appreciate your activity on Twitter these last few days, and everything like that. So just keep going. You're the man, and have a nice weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. It means a lot coming from you, and you were here at the first the Austin Hackathon, and it was great to meet up and build some cool things. And I know we have a lot more stuff coming down the road. So yeah, I mean, any business really, whether you're wallet, whether you're an app, you just it just ensures that everybody can stay on board, and well, the users will be put at the center, right? That's if a wallet starts to fall behind, just like Internet Explorer started to fall behind, like same kind of thing. People move to another one, and same with apps. And yeah, it's gonna be a different future, but it's gonna be one that we have to all work really hard. I mean, myself included, everybody really to whoever can respect the user the most, whoever can give them the best experience. That's how that's the system of incentives that we needed in order to create the environment where Bitcoin's killer app will one day be born, in my opinion.
Yep. All right, beautiful, man. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Uh, have
Thanks.
a great space, everyone. Talk to you later.
Thanks for coming on. It's always great to hear from you.
Do it again soon.
Derek and Mr. Ben, y'all both had your hands up. Whoever wants to go first, you're welcome to chat.
I just had a quick question. I don't care if Ben goes first, but I'm chatting. Babbage, I don't want to stir up any further drama or anything. I just wanted to see if you could explain for a dullard like me a little bit more about Truth Machine's criticism about the identity proof.
I'd like to make sure I have a full understanding of, what the criticism is, and I don't think I can do it complete justice. Just to be honest, I think there's a lot of fear just in general about identity, and if you have if you're prepared to try to articulate that, what the specific concerns are, I can try to address them. But I do think that there's rightly a lot of fear, and there should be a lot of scrutiny on any type of thing that touches user identity and tries to define a framework for interacting with user identity. And so I welcome that discussion, whether it's now or at some point in the future.
I mean, I can use Truth Machine as a pretty good metric. If you've gotten under their skin a little bit, then you're doing something that's worth looking at. I appreciate your work.
I
Thanks.
think that's fair.
And your response was like, it speaks to your character. Like, thank you very much for what you're doing, and everybody else.
Thanks for coming up, Derek. Mr. Ben, did you have something to add?
Hey, yeah, a question. You know me, stable coins, money. And I was wondering, Ty, this app is Gateway, that's what we call it, is would it incorporate stable coins, namely money? I mean, I guess that's up to money to develop that, not you guys. Yeah. And
but it is possible, and I can provide some more context on what would be required if you think that would be useful. Yeah,
exactly. Because I was trying to develop a little app myself, and I would love to use money instead of which running on the BSV of course as micropayments. But what I was struggling with, I'm based in Europe, and I can't even get money, which is non-ERC20 token, and so that's quite frustrating. And I was just wondering if you know of anything, or maybe what your thoughts, maybe the good thing is what your thoughts are on stablecoins. I mean, what's your take on it all? I mean, do you think in the future we're going to be using more stablecoins which are running on BSV net rails, or do you think we'll be paying by Satoshis?
I mean, I think definitely we'll have both, and it depends on what time scale, and also what we're doing. I think for small casual payments, like described in the white paper, Satoshis are just the perfect they're the perfect thing for that. But then there's like tokenization and representing various digital assets, even something like a credit card or something like a stable coin asset where you have maybe still a hard not necessarily a hard representation of that asset, but you have a way to model the stablecoin on BSV, subjecting its supply and other things to particular rules or accountability through the blockchain. So there's a lot of different things to think about when it comes to when we think about the real world assets, so to speak. And shout out to real world assets, because be good to reconnect with that stuff. But yeah, it gets very context specific, and it gets a little bit complex when we think about regulation and all of the other stuff that has to be involved. I will say that, the BRC 100 standard and the wallets and the way that all of that works is completely compatible with, and will in fact support in the near future, various types of stablecoins as part of a thing called Metanet permissions modules. So there's some specific technical documents, namely BRC 98 for protocols and BRC 99 for UTXO types inside of particular baskets. Basically, all of that is to say Wallets will evolve over time so that they can provide the specific extensibility and permissioning and regulatory compliance requirements as extensions to their core functionality in order to support things like whether it's CBDCs or privately issued digital money, whatever the case is in whatever jurisdiction. And there is going to be in the future an ecosystem of that type of asset deployed within the Metanet, so that users who have those extensions and who have compliant wallets for those particular use cases can be involved. However, I certainly think that for small transactions among among websites, just content creators, the average individual paying small amounts of money for something as simple as a search to find out some information, or listening to a song, or watching a video or something, that Satoshis as this peer-to-peer electronic cash system will probably be the default and most common way of doing that, just because of network effects and because any type of digital asset would need to ride on top of the Satoshi rails anyways. But certainly subject to regulation, subject to the technical requirements of extending the wallet with Metanet permissions modules under BRC 98 and BRC 99 moving forward. We would be able to add support for stablecoins, even things like coupons or digital rewards, something like that, where somebody could have those inside of a wallet and create the necessary degree of permissions management and other types of there's some technical granularity that needs to be added to particular wallets so they can be informed about the correct place where certain assets need to be registered, or the correct way that identity needs to be incorporated for particular types of high value transactions. Even think about something like title to a house or a car or something like that, right? So all of these things are supported by the framework and by the standard, and it will be extensible enough to facilitate all manner of digital assets and digital representations of tokenized ownership for physical assets like property, and financial instruments and other high value contracts on a per application basis. And certain wallets will have more of that than others. But the purpose behind BRC 100 is to make sure that there is a core set of functionality that all wallets must implement, and that those primitives, when it comes to key management, identity management, and the non-custodial nature of wallets, and the vendor neutrality of the base layer of the common set of applications, that all of those things are defined openly and in a way that we can use Satoshis, we can use overlay services, we can use the BSV blockchain as a base layer for people to get together and to create value in many different ways. And then that permissioned ecosystem within 98 and 99 will also be developed. And so TLDR, I guess, for this, I would say, certainly there will be the ability to do stablecoins and other types of regulation compliant digital assets in particular jurisdictions, and we have the capability to comply with all of that, while also making sure that we have an open foundation on top of which to build that respects the necessary degree of autonomy required to keep users in control over their Satoshis and their private keys, and have privacy and all of that. And I think that'll be the most common for everyday transactions. I hope that can provide some degree of clarity about this extremely complicated and intricate topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic, the BRC. I mean, it totally is revolutionizing everything. It really is quite. I did a post the other day about how the shipping container, how the shipping industry was revolutionized just by this simple box, which everybody went by the same dimensions, and you can check anything in. and it just changed everything, and this is what the BRC 100 is doing as well. And I think it's brilliant. And you have everything on board, your identity all runs on the same rails. And yeah, I think it's great. I just think we just need some decent wallets. I mean, wallets that can do coin control, for example. We got the Electrum SV, which is no one's looking after it, but I think Craig was even putting out the other day about IP2IP or something, and I think he might have even been saying we need to have something like this, if I remember correctly. And I think if we do have stable coins on, because when it comes to stable coins, I mean, my nan or whoever, she ain't gonna download Rock Wallet or anything like that. And pay by Satoshis. It'd be too confusing for them. So I think we need to have it so the general Joe blogs will also be able to spend in what they're used to, whatever national money they're using.
It should just already be on your phone, from my perspective, right? Like, it should be baked into every device, every operating system.
Absolutely. We see what they're doing
already.
now. You see what they're kind of training people up already. So if you go to like the local supermarket down the road, certainly over here in Europe, they're they have these apps now where you download the app and you get discount off your products and things. So people obviously, when times are tough and want to pay for their groceries, they want to pay a bit less, they start using these apps, which is purely entrainment. You can see it. This is what's happening, and it's lots of big commercial stores doing that. So, and then at some point it'd be like, oh, by the way, here you go. Here's an app which is a wallet which you can have money stablecoin on or whatever it is, which is all running on, which you wouldn't know. I think it'd be running on Bitcoin, and hopefully this all works out and BRC 100 compliant. But that's what we need to. I think is what we need to be pushing for as well. Is because I think I personally think the stablecoin, along with what you've done, what you've achieved, I think it's just fantastic. What Ziggy's been doing, the guys there at Terranode, and I think the battle is also the battle of the stablecoins. So yeah, but thanks so much for everything. It's great, and hopefully I see you in London. I'm hoping to get there.
Yeah, I look forward to it, and I'll mention, like, it's my goal, right? Depending on the way that certain things shake out with priorities and roadmaps and all of that stuff, and the budgets and blah 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 blah. But it's my goal to try to develop a stablecoin Metanet permissions module proof of concept under BRC 98 and BRC 99 by the end of this year. I don't know if I can get there because we have to work within all of the processes and systems and everything to get everything obviously not only approved and built and released, but also like audited and made sure that we're doing things in a way that isn't just gonna cause a problem with some bug or something like that, which could be catastrophic. So we need to make sure that we're building things in a way that that is rigorous and where things are going to have integrity. But it's my hope to be able to demonstrate that type of capability in the way that I want to, on top of BRC 100, with the correct, with the extensions defined in the correct way, so that the wallet can parse and understand the UTXOs associated with the stablecoin and represent the permissions to the user in an understandable way, et cetera, so that apps can make use of stablecoins in the same way that they can, just normal Satoshis, the associated, spending authorization permissions and all of that stuff. And as we move along and make more progress, of course, more apps are going to get built, more wallets are going to get built, and I hope to create an interoperable standard for permissions modules within wallets, so that you could just extend a wallet with a particular a stablecoin extension, kind of like you can have browser extensions inside of something like Google Chrome. And so by putting these pieces together, I think we'll get to a system where there's different stablecoins or different extensions that that can be created, but at the core we have an immutable, unchanging foundation, which is a protocol where all of these apps plug together with the wallet in a way that puts the user at the center and allows them to remain in control over their data and their identity and all of their assets and stuff.
Cool. Thank you, Ty. John Cash just came up if you'd like to join in the conversation.
I just had just a quick question. Is there any plans for the future for like an official Babbage BRC 100 compliant wallet?
Well, right now, the goal is to build a reference implementation that everybody can look at, that's open source, that is compliant with the spec, and that does what it needs to, so that as many developers can build apps as possible, as many users can come on board as possible. Babbage may, at some point in the distant future, maybe make our own copy of the open reference implementation and potentially, add something to it or change it in some way. But right now, we have a great working relationship with the BSV Association, who are the maintainers of the reference implementation, as well as maintainers of the BRC 100 specification. And so because of that, we don't really have a reason to, we contribute actively to the current reference implementation. And there's also Metanet Mobile, right? Which, there's a repository for that on GitHub, which I know people have started to, poke around and look at, and we'll see where that goes. But like the number of implementations I do want to see expand, but for us as the creators of the original to go and do that prematurely, I think would be, it might create a little bit of confusion. And so I think it would be, it'd be better to just, let's get more devs and more apps and more users, and then see how it evolves naturally. If you look at the history of operating systems, I mean, like there's this, I don't know how accurate it is, but there's this infographic on Wikipedia that describes like, first there was like research Unix in like the 60s and 70s, and then like it split off into a few, and then the culmination of the graph is that like it gets very, very complex, and there's like, FreeBSD and NetBSD and OpenBSD and Linux and Mac OS and Darwin kernel and iOS and Android and all these different ones that all split off from this, and of course Windows and Microsoft stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And these were all operating systems. Unfortunately, they couldn't maintain a common API for building all of the apps that we use every day on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, and Android. It's different. And I hope we can avoid that tragedy of the past with BRC 100 by, as these wallets get built, and as the standard matures, and as people come on board with real identities, real assets, and value, right? That all of these apps can work on top of an open and interoperable foundation layer. And if that's the if that's the future we live in for a while, maybe it means that it's better just to allow that network effect to grow naturally at the beginning, so that more apps get built, more users, and maybe just have a few wallets at the beginning, maybe one or two, just so that we have a stronger incentive to maintain that cohesion as the system grows, so that we don't have people having incompatibility between trying to send each other money or something, and it just doesn't work when you have one wallet versus another. So that's my hesitation to create a lot of different wallets very quickly. But I just think a really important thing is that we have that ability, and we define the architecture in a way that somebody can. And of course, different devices, right? Desktop and mobile, for example. And then, as time goes on, we'll see how it evolves, how different, permissions modules and extensions get built into the stack, and, how that might be able to lead to different types of capabilities and competition. But certainly, yeah, like, you know, refining the user experience for onboarding is extremely important, and refining the user experience around like, you know, getting set up with you know, all of the apps that you want to use, getting this onto your phone or your computer. Eventually, we even want to partner with, I don't know, like, I think it'd be cool if we partnered with like Dell or HP or something, and be like, hey, can we install a wallet just by default when you have a computer that you buy at the store? And that way it's just there, you know, or even Apple, dare I say. Like, it would be nice if, you know, people just had these tools available. When you go set up your computer, you already have, you know, it's like part of setting up your computer is you're suddenly logged into every Metanet app. You have all of your assets and your identity and all your stuff, and you can just, you know, you can just use it, right? Like, that's kind of where I want to go with it. And you know, maybe you have you know, like, you have a default browser right now, and you set your Safari, your Chrome, your Internet Explorer. I saw this meme once. It said Microsoft Edge is the absolute best browser in the world for, you know, downloading Google Chrome and setting it as your default browser. Point is, like, yeah, maybe there's a few, but I'm not sure on what time scale. And hopefully we get a lot of apps and users before we see any type of, you know, that way we don't see fragmentation in different wallets going off in their own direction or something like that.
Very cool.
Thanks for your question, John. Zany, you came up recently. Welcome to the stage. If you have anything to add, you're welcome to share.
Yeah, hi, sorry. I was searching for my phone in my apron. So I guess one of the things that I'm 57, almost 57, and during the years that you guys were learning all of this tremendous lingo, which is impressive, right? But most of it's way over my head, right? I was building a real estate business, and now I'm kind of ready for retirement. I'm Gen X, I'm not a boomer, right? Highly intelligent, really high IQ. Can do things if I understand the structure of what I'm doing. And I have been frustrated for, I would literally say, many months, because I can't seem to find any location. Because I want to, you know, invest in BSV. I understand the difference between that and Bitcoin, or BTC rather, right? And I understand the reasons why BSV is scalable and interesting to me for future transactions in both directions. And, you know, I keep searching for some kind of place or template where I can say, okay, so a private banking node goes here on the template, right? What do you call it? A digitalized identification node. It has to be related to that banking node, and that goes here, right? And then here's your private trust, right, that owns your estate, or in my case, my ecclesiastical trust, right, because I own a small kind of cloister village, right? And that trust then owns these items, right? And it's like, attorneys don't have any freaking clue, right? They're not living in this particular world. And it's like, if you just took one item of each name, right? Node, you know, gateway, you know, exchange, all of these different terms, and somebody would like lay it out on a map so that people could, you know, like, I'm not a, you know, a 75-year-old boomer. I have millions of dollars I would like to invest, but it's so difficult to verbally get what the layout of this thing is. Is anybody doing that?
So my
Does anybody
recommendation,
have like a full template of like, hey, this is what your digital little world of nodes and wallets and, you know, your private banking node here, and, you know, yeah, you need one, what was it? Somebody told me you need one node for each exchange that you're going to be using. So if you want an Ethereum, if you want a Bitcoin, if you want a Solana, if you want a BSV or Orange Gateway or whatever you're using for that, right? Each of one of those is a different exchange node, but then they're all related to your private bank, you know, and it's like, somebody help. Somebody help. I could listen to this for 100 more presentations, and I literally have. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what is the layout, man? You know, we need
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
marketing
So
that
there's a
has a
lot of
bit
use
of like
cases.
education. I'm already sold on the coin. I love it. I get it, right? I get the base
Mhm.
program shape. I love the fact that the first block was of prayers. I get that it's for a peer-to-peer transactional world where we take all these middlemen out. Um, and I have listened to this presentation today for many, many hours. And of course, I've picked up a few things, and thank you so much. Thank you so much. But I'm still sort of no better off in terms of the structuring of this world. And that's what I really feel like. If BSV took that on and brought in a couple of OG BSV guys that were also involved in early Bitcoin and wrote out a template as if you were 5 years old to help all the people that want to invest in it desperately, you would see a surge. You would see a surge. And I don't trust a lot of the YouTubers that are like, 1, 2, 3s of this, because they're always trying to sell you something or get you to invest in some
Right.
way, shape, or form on their platform. But if you did it just for the sake of humanity, a few of you got together, you'd get a lot more investors. I'm just telling you. Okay, that's what I got. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up and pointing that out. And the relational integrity of the narrative that we're talking about here when it comes to how is this piece related to this other piece, and how does that form a coherent story that somebody can understand about where things should be, or how things should be structured, or what actions should be taken by which people in order to achieve which goals, and in order for that to make sense to the average person. Those are extremely important things, and it's highly context dependent, and it depends on your goals, right? Like, one of the key things that we talk about as an early stage technology and as people who are doing research and creating these building blocks is the mapping of these concepts, components, capabilities, tools onto use cases and applications, and onto these specific situations like the one you describe with a trust and a certain identity and a certain aspect of something owning something else, or being controlled, or something like that, like an asset being modeled within the system. All of these things are important, and what we need to do is make sure that there are resources available for people in every industry that get on their level. And that's why subject matter expertise is so important, right? We need somebody who not only understands blockchain, but we also need somebody who understands trusts and real estate and all of those aspects, so that they can bridge that gap, and so that they can speak and translate among both of those languages. And not only do we need to do that for real estate, but we need to do that for options trading. We need to do that for Internet of Things. We need to do that for every industry. And that way, the people in those industries can understand what this means for them and how they can, be on board with that type of thing. So, that being said, like, there are some ways that people can, ask questions and get some of those answers. We are focused on obviously still laying the foundation pieces of the architecture. Yes, it's been 17 years, but a lot of those years have been spent, trying to figure out what doesn't work and trying different things. And I think we're finally getting to the point where we are beginning to figure out, what does work from a technology perspective, even, so that the technology can even make sense to try to use in a particular way. And so resources are being created. If you have specific questions, I can point you again to you can go to bitgenius.net, which is a website that it's like an AI that you can talk about your particular industry, ask questions, and then because the AI is programmed to try to provide some type of answer, it will help to at least point you in the right direction with depending on what your goals are. And I think if we can get there, we can start to connect more of these dots. and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, getting out there to get on a level with investors or whoever, right? Like that would be valuable for the purposes of allowing them to say like manage their portfolios more efficiently. But we can't mistake ourselves about the bottleneck here, right? Because the bottleneck, believe it or not, in my opinion, is not a lack of investment. And maybe it would be helpful if we had a couple $100,000 to go do more events and hackathons and community building at this stage, right? In the past, that actually could have been it could have been harmful because we didn't have the primitives to actually promote, and we weren't teaching people the right things, and the messaging wasn't directed properly. But now I think it would probably be more aligned, where we just slowly ramp that up and slowly bring the right people into those discussions and promotion activities. But my point is, the bottleneck was not necessarily investment. It's actually just the technology and the research process and the development of the capabilities. And then explaining those capabilities will bring more people into the fold. But it's like what can the average person do with the BSV blockchain right now? And the answer is they can create an account on the Metanet. They can sort of get that set up on their device with their wallet. They can use some basic applications to do some basic micropayment demos. And
can I respond just for a sec? Do you mind?
Sure. Yeah.
What is a bottleneck? Wait, before you answer. What is a Metanet? What is about 50 different words that you just said? Like, I can start getting out a dictionary, but what's happening, okay, my IQ is over 150, all right? What's happening is that there's not a translation happening. And I'm just telling you what I see and hear and talk about with 40-somethings, 50-somethings, and 60-somethings. There's not a translation happening. And it's a real problem. I'm just telling you, it's a real problem. I don't know what your bottleneck issue is. I don't even really know what that means, right? I don't know if that means I don't really want to invest in BSV right now because it won't allow me to do what I'm wanting to do. And before anybody else kind of jumps on me, what I'm trying to say here is that the vast majority of people in my age range that are not involved with quote unquote industry, right? They're either employees, self-employed through small business, or property owners. Okay. And in the United States, it's still 56% of rentals and places where people live are owned by mom and pops. 56%. Not BlackRock, people like me. And we're all aging and we're all ready to cash out on all of our properties and investments and so forth. And I talk about this at dinner, on the phone with friends. It's like, well, how do we hold our cash outs in a safe way so that we can, number one, use and spend it, and number two, pass it on to our kids? Because everything's going to be digital. And none of us want to be involved with digging up gold out of our yard or leaving our kids maps, treasure maps, right? So this is what I'm telling you. You're still not understanding how much this needs to be dumbed down because you are literally raised in the language, right?
Hey, do you mind if I interject right quick? I'm
There you
between
go.
your age bracket and Babbage's age bracket, so I get where you're coming from 100%. It sounds like you're talking about tokenizing real estate on chain. So the reason I asked for the
Don't
mic
know
is
what that means.
I know. Hold on. I'm a trustee, so you're the only other person. I sent you a DM about it just a minute ago that is talking about trusts for the most part in these spaces. I'm not an Esquire nor CPA, okay, but I am a trustee, so I'm learning the ropes as I'm doing it. So I just wanted to offer, if there's anybody that knows of, aside from Slictionary, of a dictionary of Bitcoin, specifically real Bitcoin lexicology, I would love to see that. And if not, I will throw my hat in the ring to help organize something like that. I will throw real Bitcoin at it too, because she's right. I hear where that's coming from. And that's all I got.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'm totally down with like being a, half X, half boomer consultant that can say, hey, okay, this does make sense. This is something we could present to literally millions upon millions of investors that are just sitting there
Yeah.
trying to liquidate properties and figuring out where to put their money.
That's
And
right where I am
they're
now.
sitting and waiting like
We're all
me.
in it together. We're all in
Yep.
it together.
Well, I
I
thank you
And
for
the
your
other
comment. Go
side is
ahead.
not.
want to go ahead and
Good.
real quick. I just want to direct you guys to the Nest. I just put an interview with Ian Gregg that Gavin did that talks a lot about trusts, and I think it would help point you in the right
I
direction.
agree.
Zany, please check that interview out because it does answer a lot of the questions that you have. I don't personally have the lingo to do it right now, but I do know that I listened to that interview and some of your answers are in it for sure.
Thank you. Thanks so much, hon. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Abo Mac, I'm adding you as a speaker. Come on up. You are on stage. So, Abo Mac, can you hear me? You're welcome to.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to put my 2 cents with what Zan was saying. I think
Hold on a second. Your audio.
Having some audio issues. It sounds like it's popping.
Yeah, your audio is a little messed up. Can you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, Thai is really technical. I just wanted to put that out there for Zan. So I'm not technical, but I can try to uh, say what Zan is trying to say. Maybe if you can say yes or no, if that's the case. I had the same issue like Zan. So it's really we need some way to present to the person that has no technical understanding, like what she said, like a 5-year-old. Like you have to dumb it down so much, and it has to be super easy for a sale to occur in the real world. Because I know Ty is saying we need customers. If you need customers, your customers are the 5-year-old. Just if I understood you correctly.
Yeah, in this world, I'm a 5-year-old. In real estate, I'm a 57-year-old, but it's a completely different world. And I'm not even sure how they overlap very well yet. But, even the process of getting my Orange Gateway account, I did not understand, like, okay, well, they're giving me this square code thing, right? I don't live in that world. I don't do square codes, right? And I'm supposed to scan this, but I don't understand how to scan it when it's on my phone. How can I scan it with my phone? Like silly stuff like that. Like start from A, B, C, you know? And it's like, am I supposed to scan it off of my computer screen? Do I need to print it out? Like what is, like, a lot of us didn't do this. We were so busy working and, building our businesses in other ways. And many of us are moving from the public to the private domain. So that's been a focus for many of us for 5 to 10 years, right? But the vast majority of people that I know are small business owners or real estate owners,
Zan,
right?
I just
And
want
I
to
don't mean to come across as like frustrated or anything. This is just sort of how my
no,
energy is right now because I was just carrying groceries and it's really freaking hot. So I apologize.
it's
But,
okay.
go ahead,
I've
honey.
I've spent so much time with people like you. I've been here for years now, and I had a couple websites. One of them was Take Your Brand to the Blockchain. And I spent 3-hour sessions on Zoom with people, click by click, helping them set up their alternative social media platforms where they could take all the content they were creating on traditional like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and put them onto the platforms that used to be on BSV that were comparable to those so that they could just start monetizing their content and earning these micropayments of Bitcoin. So at any time, if you'd like, I'm happy to hop on Zoom with you. And I do not speak the technical lingo that everyone does. And I'm happy to walk you through or answer any questions that you have. I actually really enjoy doing that. But I think that's what it's going to take is just people spending the time with people like you to walk them through click by click. The
Well,
templates would
and
be
thank
great.
you. Thank you, because I do agree that there's something about it that needs to be organic and relational, right? And then
Yes.
it's like, okay, here's a question mark we don't know about yet, is how to have an ecclesiastical trust own this node, right? Or whatever it is, and those are specialized questions. I understand that. But, and I also am not a big believer in like just put out a whole bunch of templates and tell everybody choose your template. That doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily work either, because it is so specialized. But I love what you're saying. I think that's a way that BSV could start to focus their group think, as a kind of resurging group of people that are, you know they're asserting some amazing things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always willing to be open and say, okay, even though it had this history to it that where it kind of got usurped by, we'll just call it the empire system, right?
Hmm.
That the reason why it's resurging is because it has this, and this in place that they took away from original Bitcoin. And
Hmm.
here's, our examples of why that's working and why we still have some building to do in that regard. Don't laugh, brother. Come on. We still have some building to do, but the reason why we feel like it can grow into this worldwide structure that you can trust is X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
right? In layman's terms. And
Yeah.
that's the users that you're waiting for. That's all I'm saying, and I'm
No,
sending nothing but love, really, nothing but love.
yes. No, I called myself a BSB concierge, just pointing people in the right directions to answer their specific questions. I don't know everyone personally, but I have been around long enough to know who specializes in what for the most part. So let's connect outside of this and deep dive. And we are the ones that are here first, so we can build those templates together for other people to follow. That was the entire intention behind the Take Your Brand to the Blockchain offer and the Be the Broadcast platform that I was building, was basically just networking space where each vertical was categorized into groups, and I had the leaders of each, like Project Babbage. Ty would be in there so that I could just take people to one place and say, no matter what your specialty is, you'll find it in here, and you'll find the experts that can answer your questions. So I could just push people off to the experts, and I didn't have to actually know all the answers myself. But I do really enjoy doing this type of thing, personalized one-on-one sessions with people. I was doing it for free. I also did charge for a while, but it's not about the money. It's about, bringing people into this network that I believe is, part of the freedom and liberation for humanity. So let's
Thank you.
let's make
Appreciate
it
that.
happen.
Thank you. I'll reach out to you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is why I think the stablecoin is the most important thing, because your average Joe blogs really doesn't care about the rails. They just want to buy their groceries. So
Yeah.
what we want to do, I mean, for us, we're more specialized. We're into Bitcoin. I mean, I'm probably everybody here lives and breathes Bitcoin every day. We're thinking about it all the time. We're it's so exciting, the space. But if I speak to friends of mine and I'm like telling about it, they just yeah, whatever. Can I make a load of money on it? And I'm like, well, yeah, I think so. And then their ears pick up. But and then I think it's the same as if you buying stocks and shares. I mean, I don't have many, but the first time I ever did it, I was like going, I don't know what I'm doing here. So that's been going on for generations. So it's the same sort of procedure. So, and now it's the new financial system is coming through. And I just think, the race for the stable coin. I mean, I think what BSV has, Bitcoin has, it's all there. We have everything. We have the foundations, and that's why I don't even doubt that this is not going to be used, because it scales. It has micropayments, nano payments. It can speak to the hardware and to the software. It's just it's insane, this thing, how amazing it is, but it can't speak to the elder generation, you know, and
I think the yeah
but I think the vast majority of people, they I mean, it's like buying with MasterCard and Visa. We don't, you know,
yeah
how does it work? It
People,
doesn't.
they
the
need more.
takeaway it seems is like that, like, yeah, it scales technology wise, right? But like it also has to scale community wise, like to a high degree of granularity. Like it has to be personal, has to be personable and easy for each person to understand. And there have to be people who do what you do, Casey, for example, and
Yeah,
go and just
people
help
people
people
are,
to, you know, to get what they want out of this stuff. Because like, yeah, I am very technical, right? That's my role, and like we need different people doing different parts of this, whether it's creating the capabilities, but also like just letting average people understand, like boots on the ground, what this stuff can be good for, and doing that in a way that is simple and accessible, um, and having that type of yeah, like infographic
when
or
people are
just
when people
yeah
are doing stuff with their money, they need more hand holding. Like it, and that's one of the things I loved about the Women of BSV podcast episodes that we were doing too, were the tutorial videos. From a layman's perspective, it wasn't the high level technical tutorials. So I I found something that I actually really enjoy doing was the hand holding. I know a lot of people can get frustrated when you're trying to, you know, click by click explain things, but using Zoom, you know, there's a feature where you can just control someone's mouse and show them click by click how to use
yeah
Twet or Lament or things like that. And it just, um, I think that's one of the things that's majorly holding us back. And if you know, show this stuff to the right person that has a big enough audience that can then onboard their whole audience, that's the tipping point. So it's just a matter of more hand holding, I think, and less technical lingo. Even today, I felt
yeah
kind of silly asking some of the questions I asked Degan, but you know, I don't need the high level stuff. I just need to know how do I get my holdings off of my phone onto something that feels more secure, because I know these phones are not secure. So that's a
right
simple question, and this space could have been 15 minutes. But you know, I love having these technical conversations, and I do personally want to learn the you know, underlying tech, but I do definitely enjoy the hand holding for people that are just getting started and trying to meet them where they're at with my
yeah
delivery of the understanding. So
And as engineers, I think our ultimate mandate is how can we reduce the amount of the amount of handholding by making the tech as easy as it can be, right? Because right now there's so much, and minimizing, yeah, like there's as I talked about at the beginning, there's like this, you know, time to first magic, which is how
mhm.
long does it take to get somebody to feel like this is a really great and awesome thing for them to use, and reducing that down as much as we can by making the tech not behave in an uncertain way would be very
Mhm.
valuable. So,
Definitely.
you know, I hope we can get there. I think we will. It's
Podcast
going to
you were
take,
doing, that group of women, did they get taken down or
No,
something?
it was a long
Uh,
story, but it just kind of dissolved.
yeah,
And it's something that I do think the videos were still, I mean, there's some of them are still being watched. It's just the platforms themselves are not functioning anymore. So it just kind of brought everything to a screeching halt. But I'm looking forward to when I mean, the marketing that I was doing, I was being very effective, bringing some big players to the table and you know, showing them, onboarding them completely and getting them all set up to be able to take it to their audience. But the platforms themselves and the ecosystem itself was not ready, you know, and still had some bugs to work out and things like that. So I'm just kind of chomping at the bit over here to get back into that consulting. But it's just a matter of, you know, getting all this foundational architecture built so that we can, you know, start building these platforms again and then I'll be doing that. I want to, do that as a consulting business again. And I would like to start those tutorial videos again. So it's just a matter of waiting for the
We're gonna
ecosystem
rebuild.
to catch
We're
up.
gonna rebuild the platforms. It's gonna happen, right? We're gonna rebuild those platforms on BSC 100, and basically what happened in the past was the way the platforms were built, even though they claimed to be like Web3 platforms, and nothing against any of these people. Maybe even some of the people that build those platforms are like here right now. So nothing against, like, these people did great work to show us the glimpse into the future that we needed to keep building back then. But
Yeah.
the issues were just, it depended on a single company running a single system in order to continue working, and it wasn't built the right way back then. And therefore, when those companies, Money Button was a big one, when they went under, it killed that whole group of platforms that people tried to make for everybody to use, to have control over their data and their assets, their money, their identity, everything. And when we got away from, the Web3 vision, and we started to just build for convenience and try to take that shortcut of trying to get all these stuff done like immediately, even because we're super excited about building, but we got away from like the needed groundwork to make sure that nobody could take that away from us. It hurt. It hurt the whole space, and it cost us dearly, because a lot of those devs who spent that time to make those platforms, like, hopefully a lot of them come back and are still here, but a lot of them just got really demoralized and frustrated, and they left. And so, we're going to rebuild those platforms on top of a foundation of openness and interoperability, so that nobody can take them away again. But I'm not going to make the same compromises of the past, and I'm going to take as long as necessary to make sure. And that's what BRC 100 does. Is, it's a very long-term thing that took a long time to get here, right? But it's like, that is what is required to make sure that when we do have those platforms again, when it does come back, it's actually real, and it's actually putting people at the center in control over those things. Because there's only so many times that we can just have something catastrophic happen, like the fall of Money Button, for example, or Streamanity, or any of these things. And so, I hope we can rebuild, and then we can get some people to come on board again, and make it easier and easier, and whatnot. And now we're going to do it in the open, and we're going to do it with the tools that we have, and just that's it. It's all that we can do. So here we are, and I hope it happens soon. I hope we have a lot of the people come back and help. But it's not an easy thing at all. So
Yeah, but Ty,
yeah.
good job, man. Thank you. This is great, and I want to just chime back in here. So this is really super awesome, because what you're saying, in the way I'm hearing it, is that this is the opportunity for the newer group, because I'm of the newer like kind of the newer age. I wasn't around when Casey was doing all these things, and maybe you were even earlier, much earlier than I was. And so, but the newer, like the ones who were, we heard of these things, money, but I remembered I used it, but I don't have the. I mean, I feel like we can, like the newer group of us, all of us who are like fresh, and we want to really make this happen. We can rise up from the ashes and bring about, like, bring this to light, and learn from those experiences, and learn from the challenges that happen then, because that's going to just make this whole thing so much stronger. It's going to make it unbreakable now. I mean, if you have a system to where now you build the next wallet infrastructure like this BRC 100, and then a company goes out of business. Well, it goes out of business, and everyone just continues on. There's no, isn't that how it's going to work now? It will just continue on, and all the apps will still work just the same,
Yeah,
even if the next money button goes out of business.
it's correct. That's how it's designed.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we really need. That's what we needed in the first place. But now it's like now you were able to figure out how to do it. And that's
I
really
hope
what
we
I'm excited about.
I hope we also learned our lesson when it comes to turning sites into porn sites, because I had some really big people, big fish on my hook with Streamanity and also Lament. And I didn't realize that they were turning to that place. And when I was on onboarding sessions with a couple of clients, I went and clicked on these uh, apps or websites, and
Mhm.
there's like a woman spread eagle right there. I'm like, come on, this is not professional. I cannot bring a influencer with 300,000 followers that's talking about real estate to this to create their content on. This is not acceptable. So I really hope that that lesson has been learned moving forward. I know that sex sells, but when it comes to bringing actual professionals to the table, that's going to stall the ecosystem. So just my 2 cents, my 2 satoshis there.
Yeah, I mean, every use case has, some people behind it. It's about who we are as an ecosystem, and every company chooses what they're going to throw their support behind. And, I think we'll definitely just create an ecosystem where obviously there's competition and everything between these different people, so that we can just make sure that uh, that people have the ability to choose the type of thing they're wanting to to be around and whatever. Like I would say, when it comes to like overlay services, for example, there's different nodes on the overlay network, each of which can set independent policies for what type of content is acceptable on that particular overlay services instance. And it doesn't have to have it doesn't have to have every piece of content on every node, because the overlay is merely just derived from the blockchain. But people can host different things. So some people find something objectionable, they can avoid it and move elsewhere.
Well, a
So
monetized spaces with micropayments or a YouTube
that'd be
alternative
fun.
would be, or a Clubhouse even type platform where we
Yeah.
like reward the speaker with micropayments and things like that. I mean, these are the killer apps I think people are waiting for. If you look at content creators, a lot, it's video, it's voice, and so I just can't believe
Yeah,
it.
we should build on-chain
That,
spaces. I would enjoy doing that, and then we can have this conversation on the Metanet with BRC 100.
yes.
I think we'll get there very soon. It's just going to require some non-final transactions. It's going to require some WebRTC integration, maybe some real-time sockets and message box server to be used for audio transport, and a few little pieces here and there that we would need to plug together. But it's easier than it was in the past, and we have the primitives. Again, we just need more building blocks. Well, actually, no, it's just like almost we need to put the building blocks into the right configuration. Somebody has to figure that out, go
Mhm.
build that use case, and then launch it. And if it uses BRC 100, then it means that whatever wallet somebody uses, it'll work. And if the data is held by the users using UTXOs on chain, in an overlay or with baskets or whatever the case is, then the point is the users are in control of that data. And if that user interface changes in a way somebody doesn't like, or whatever else, if the protocol is open, somebody can plug into that data, somebody can keep it going, and that's what it's about. So it's about resiliency, and I think that's kind of the key point. It's just being resilient to these types of things, these types of failures we'll solve it, and then we'll have a distributed internet, but we have to want it, right? Because and you have to sell it to people, convince them, well, why is this a more powerful narrative for you to live by?
Ty, I
For
think
you
if
to
you're, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to make a
go
quick
ahead.
comment. What I think I was talking to Rafael, and he said I can subsidize millions, hundreds of millions of transactions for new users. Why don't you focus on something like that where you subsidize new users with micropayments that they don't even have to
We
pay
do.
or set up any wallets? It could be a free service, and then once they're like in the system, they're used to it. They need that service, and then they just you make a smooth transition into to the payment system
We
instead of
have that.
like, because people are used to free, right? We're here, most of us are
Mhm.
just free here on Spaces. It has no
When
cost.
when you sign up for a BRC 100 wallet with your phone number, with the default configuration for wallet storage and wallet authentication backend, through the Metanet reference implementation, you're given 100,000 Satoshis to your phone
Absolutely.
number for
Yep.
free. And we do that. And that means that, 100,000 Satoshis is a lot of transactions, of course, depending on how you spend them. So we do give some money away to users when they sign up. And we'd be open to talking with people about increasing that per user sign up, subsidy, so to speak, just by, if those people think that it would benefit them to, spend their BSB on increasing the new user subsidy, send me a message or reach out on Slack, and we will talk about increasing that subsidy according to the amount of BSV that those people would like to contribute, because it does help the ecosystem,
Yeah.
and because so we can talk about it for sure. Like,
Every
shoot me a
single
DM or something.
every single person that I onboarded, whether they paid me or not, I gave them like either 33 cents, $3.33. I mean, some people I gave like $11 to. Like,
I'm
I,
It's
sending
angel
whole
number. I like
I'm
it, Casey.
sending whole coins actually when I
yeah,
onboard people. I'm
Yeah.
giving them like a whole coin.
yeah. No, I always gave them money to play with, because I think that is when they really get excited, when they see how it all works. And if you can't really use it and you can't do anything on Twitch, what's the point of, being on
Yeah.
there? So, but that was my activism. This is
Mm.
the resistance to the toxic internet is onboarding people to the Metanet. So that was what I called my presentations, was introduction to the Metanet. And every single person that I showed this to was blown away. It was just, I can't use it because the platform itself was buggy, or Tonic Powell
Yeah.
wasn't working, or different things. So I know I can get all those people back when the time comes.
Casey, I think that we should make sure that when we onboard people to the Metanet, that we give them a number of Satoshis that is an angel number, like 333 or
Yeah.
something like that, right? Like, we should
11. Yeah, definitely.
yes.
I love
If we do that, then it's just a good omen for what they're going to do on the Metanet in the future.
yes.
So that's kind of cool.
Hub, you've had your hand up. If you'd like to chime in, I think we're gonna close it out here soon, but would love to hear from you.
Cool. Yeah, glad to join at the end. Is it coming through?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I've been working on a few things. So we got an event coming up this evening, but I wanted to touch in. And actually, I think it was Mr. Ben maybe jumped off, but he brought up the stable coins. But I really like how you're framing it, Ty, and I think it's taken a couple steps forward. You want to put the people at the center. This idea of the subsidy for user sign up, I think, is a good one, as a way to get people ready to go through the door. If they just need a few sats to do so, then if that'll get them through the door, it's great. And I know you've done that already with the Metanet client. I wanted to say an example because it just happened yesterday, and I was going through the process. I'm sure others have gone through as well. Of, wow, wouldn't it be cool if it was that easy for us? So I went to it was an artist in residence, and the reason I went is because I got a notice that this person had done NFTs, and so the artist gave a talk. This was in the Library Archives of Canada, and he gave his talk, and then at the end he said, oh yeah, and also we have these NFTs, and it's the future, and blockchain is the thing, and it's a way to secure and validate the provenance and confirm that the artist gets paid for what they made. We've all heard this before. We know the principles of it, but the kicker was they had the table and they had people sign up for NFTs, and the fact that this was a very good artist, people wanted to get wanted to get some of the art, and there were at least 20 signups in the time that I was there, and they signed up through Base, right? So that's the way they went about doing it. And I think if there was something similar, I know there's artists in the BSV ecosystem, but I think some kind of and I don't want to call it a collective or a cooperative or something like that, but if they're, to me, and Ty, I like that you're getting out there and getting your voice out there and be more regular on the messaging. If there were events that could be held, and Gavin, whether it's you leading or others, right, maybe who are closer to certain areas, but where now people can showcase their NFTs and perhaps find a project then that sees their NFTs and will go, hey, could we get you into our project as well? Because, for example, what we're launching is it's going to be using the stablecoins. That's why I started with Mr. Ben. But the idea is that those who don't want to pay don't have to pay. Those who want to pay but they only have fiat, go ahead, pay with fiat. But those who want to pay with a digital currency, they're going to get a more richer experience, a fuller experience, because they can do the things and they can put information on chain. If they've only paid with fiat, they can't do that. And obviously, if they're not paying at all, they can't. But they can still participate. So that was our design, is that it's the most welcoming for anyone. But for those who want to dig in, and then this is where this community is so valuable, because it has so much knowledge and education. And I say that as a great compliment with someone new who's come in. I know someone else in this conversation as well has kind of experienced that. And the comment was simply, you all are so deeply looking at this, and there's philosophers among you, and you really care about the truth and what is this technology, and you're not just talking about pumps and coins and all kinds of alt things. So that's a great compliment. But I think, and I've been saying it since I kind of joined in, and Gavin, it was sort of when you were starting these spaces, I think there needs to be more coordination and organization of talent in such a way that it can be displayed at regular intervals so people know what's coming up. If I know, on Saturday there's going to be an event where something like what I could pitch is possible, then I'll probably work a day and a half, just to get it ready for that, right? And then I'll wait a couple more weeks or a month or however long till the next one's up. And I think that's kind of a way of incentivizing people, like the hackathon strategy that Babbage has got going with Script as well. Because the more ways that people can demonstrate their skills and talents, and then the more opportunities for new prototypes to surface through the discussions and seeing these things happen, I think that's where we get more of the onboarding towards a slow, gradually growing network effect, which we're all about. But Ty, again, I think the words are very supportive, and the way you've put the user as the content, that's the way I like it with McLuhan. But the putting the people at the center, that's beautiful. Now the people who use the ecosystem need to learn how to do better with ourselves and lift ourselves up. So please come to our session tonight at 7:00. We're talking about Satoshi, but in an indirect way. It's going to be on this vote smash. We don't have everything integrated up yet, but we're sort of starting to show it, and you'll hopefully be seeing some of the things in the community that you've been waiting for, and we'll be interested to plug into other projects as well. So thanks for letting me up to speak here today.
Cool. Thanks for coming up, Cub. Nice to see you and hear from you. I see Zan came up one more time. Did you have anything else to add, my dear, before we try to close it out? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for opening a door somewhere for me. And I also wanted to say that I am not interested in having you transfer to me. I am interested in transferring my first transaction to you. right? I'm a big believer in exchange of energy. So, and all of the kind of what I would call tried and true folks in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, have been part of a different world for a long time. And we really believe in exchange of energy, right? Where it's balanced and lawful. And I also understand the exhaustion that a lot of people have gone through trying to bring people into a system that they really don't even have the lexicon for. And that in and of itself has great value to somebody like me. So I would like my first angel number transfer to be into your account, my dear. So that's where I'm coming from. And I really appreciate everybody, still trying to stay open to us newbies. I really do. Because there's a lot of us, and a lot of us are just sitting here going, God, we have so much value we're sitting on. And we're trying to figure out how to merge into this digital age, so that we can travel and we can visit other communities. My whole focus is on being able to exchange value with other cooperative communities like mine that own land and hold land in a way that allows people to travel between like-minded communities. So that's my real focus. You might call it a Bitcoin monastery. Right now I'm calling it crypto cloisters because my group is mostly women, and it's kind of a joke, but that's really how we are. So I just wanted to say that's my vision in the big picture. That is what I'm trying to bring service to. All right. So much love, you guys. I really appreciate it. And Cub, I'm going to try to come to your thing tonight and look up terms I don't understand. All right. Much love to you guys.
Back at you, my dear. And if anyone in this room wants to DM me your phone number, I will text you some BSV, a micropayment to show you how we can send SMS to SMS. I really love that platform that they've built. And then John Wayne, he built this bitcoincup.org. I did add my cup to the Nest, where you can send micropayments by scanning that QR code to show some love. I know Gavin has a cup too. But there's all kinds of ways we can support each other and just create the transactions this ecosystem needs to show what it's capable of. So thank you all for being here. And Gavin, are you back, my dear?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
back. Can you hear me? Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I'm that worked out pretty good. I was able to, I wasn't able to participate. I actually had to go on mobile and cross the bridge, cross the water into the courtroom, and went on totally offline to see the judge for a while. Then I went out, came back across the bridge, and now I'm back here again. So, I missed a lot of the space. So, thank you for hosting it, Casey. That was really, really awesome
Yeah, thank
from
you
what I heard.
for staying on, man. I
I
really
did get a recording on it, and I got some of it was live, and then I ended the live stream, and I think I've got a Zoom recording of the whole thing. So I'm going to put it out on YouTube when it's done, so I can go back and listen to the stuff I didn't hear, and get it out there for everybody else to hear the recordings, because I know there was a ton of valuable information when I was chiming in what I did hear. So this is really, really awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I had. I mean, if there's any last words, feel free to chime in. And I appreciate Ty being up here, and Babbage and Brett looks like stayed up on here. Looks like I got a show coming up with Siggy coming up next week. Yeah, next week he's scheduled with me, so we're gonna do a show on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to meeting with him for the first time. And I'll be in London for sure. It looks like for the London blockchain, starting on the 21st uh, with the group there. So that's going to be freaking huge. I can't wait. All right. So then, unless there's anything else, Casey, we'll wrap it there. Okay. Sounds good.
good with me. Thank you. You guys have a great
Thank you,
weekend.
guys. See you at the top.